Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. A shortened week as I will be taking Thursday and Friday night off, heading to Vancouver to get some hockey gear for my son, then Guns N' Roses on Saturday night. But we got 3 shows to do for you this week, starting with Jeff Harman tonight on the show, Astrology, Paranormal Encounters, and more coming on up. But first, we need to say hello to each and every one of you because this is why we do this show. T-Bone in the gold medal position. Eternity Eternal with the silver. Kitty Caddywhack taking home the bronze medal tonight. Scrolling on down, we got Race Fan. Mel WD-40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show because you can't talk astrology without being lubed up. So thank you, Mel, for the lube. We greatly appreciate it. Connie Waldrop, how you doing? Nice to see you. Thunderhead, always a pleasure. Robert Lamoth is here. Robert Lamoth will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Frankie B, how you doing? Kitty Caddywhack, thank you for kicking off this super chat tonight. The super chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Remedic, how you doing? Thanks for coming on in. Necessary Dialogue and Dunzel, nice to have you both here. Gear Jammers, Road Flare, Goblin, nice to see you all here. Mickey G, hope you're doing well. Louise, how are you? Have a great night tonight. Listen again. Number 7 in your program tonight, starting at center ice from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson. There he is. Moving on, we have, let's scroll on down. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Jessica McCreary is here. Jessica McCreary will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Terry Hall and your gorgeous mustache. How you doing, buddy? Luscious Jules, nice to see you. Mama Catherine, mwah, I love you, my dear. I hope you have a great time listening in tonight, and I hope you had a great day as well. Much love to you, my dear. Scrolling on down. Pam Harris, how are you tonight? And who is next? Jay Truth, good to see you. As we continue on with our roll call, Walter Kochabinski, nice to see you. And Flubber Lane, always a pleasure. Terry Mills, thank you for joining us tonight. Paramarv, how you doing, buddy? Nice to see you. Can't wait to see you in a few weeks, my man. Can't wait. 25 days to be exact, brother. All right, moving on down, we have Ozzy. Good to have you here. John Lamb, thanks for coming on in. Gary J., good to see you. Chief Von Beef, nice to have you back. As we scroll on down and we say hello next to, well, let's take a look here. Let's take a quick peeky poo. It's Matthew Gutka, everybody. Matthew frickin' Gutka. How you doing, bud? Oh, I'm testing out my trail cam here. So there's a reason. I'll get into that in hour number 3. So if you see a little flash here, that's from the camera. That's from the camera. Moving on down, Chris Irvin, nice to have you here. And T-Bone, thank you for gifting another great super chat. We appreciate it. The Thelbian, I probably got that wrong, but it's spelled so, my eyes are screwed, so I can't see like that. Welcome to SOR Chat, by the way. Jessica S., nice to have you here as we continue on. Integrationing, nice to see you. And are we caught up already? Are we caught up? Or did this thing jump on me again? No, we're caught up. Hold on, let's get the radio side going, everybody. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to get into astrology and much more of the paranormal. Jeff Harman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He's coming up here momentarily. We are in roll call on our YouTube side. Yennefer, how you doing? She prefers a soft J. And I think we're caught up. I do. Hey, if you are listening in on the radio and podcast side, don't forget to hit subscribe and follow, whatever you have to do to help us on out to grow this channel a little bit more. If you're new to our YouTube channel, welcome. And don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that bell. The super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can wear our clothes in public and be proud of it. Now, it's that time of the night where I ask each and every one of you a favor. Throw those horns up, everybody. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods. We're together, friends. Oh, it's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Caribou Con. We get going in 25 days for Caribou Con right here in the heart of British Columbia. We want to see you all up here. Get your tickets right now at cariboucon.com. We're going to test out our astrological signs, paranormal, supernatural, UFOs. Author, researcher Jeff Harman is here to join us for this exhilarating show. In hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off with a spooky story. We'll follow that one up by Grant Baker being here for the UFO report. So let's get right to it. Jeff Harman is a world-renowned second-generation master astrologer, spiritual researcher, and paranormal investigator with over 50 years of experience working with everyday seekers, public figures, and celebrities. Deeply versed in ancient and traditional systems, Jeff uses astrology to uncover what may be hidden beneath the surface, helping people find clarity, direction, and a deeper understanding of their unique life journey. His approach combines ancient wisdom with grounded, compassionate perspective, along with the fact that he works with clients on corrective measures, including custom talisman created with natural untreated gemstones, astrologically prescribed according to ancient tradition as well. He has been on this show a couple of times before, and so is his wife, Camille, who's an ET experiencer and just one of the most lovely people I've ever met. Jeff Harman, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio again. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
It is always good to have you here. Always good. From the beautiful, I believe you live in SoCal, around Beverly Hills in that area. And
actually, we're north of there. We're up by Woolsey Canyon, not too far from West Hills. So
nice.
We're a little north of the land of fruits and nuts, not too far, but a little bit.
So, no forest fires to worry about?
Well, not right now, but we'll see what happens. That can happen.
Yeah, my area just got hit pretty bad. So Thankfully,
Hmm.
thankfully, not didn't affect my town, but south of us, it affected a lot of good people that I know, and they're just
Oh yeah.
devastating. These fires, just
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
Down there in Washington, it was really rough. I know they had a lot. My brother lives in northern Wisconsin, and he was saying a while back the smoke was so dense they had to drive with the headlights on during the day. Absolutely amazing.
We had one day up here that was just like a horror movie, where we had rainstorm come in, pardon me, a lightning storm come in with like just absolutely cats and dogs torrential rain, lightning
Wow.
ripping through it. There was so much smoke in the sky that the street lights were on, and it made everything look orange and black. I'd
It
never
can get
seen that.
surreal.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah, I was at my daytime job, and my boss at like 2 o'clock says, "What are we doing here? We need to go home." And we shut down the doors like 3 hours before closing, and it was pretty intense. I mean, it's amazing how Mother Nature can create her own weather systems, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. It gets brutal, man. Yeah. Earthquakes, tornadoes, fires. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tough
not a
stuff.
fan of the tornadoes, but,
Yeah, you got that right. Oh.
at least a
Well,
fire.
Mars is actually right now making a conjunction to Sirius between now and the 1st of November. I'm sorry, September, not November, September. And, this has been possibly why we're seeing so much heat this summer and the fires, because Sirius was always known by the Egyptians as the scorcher. And they always said in the summer, that was where the dog days of summer came
Yeah,
from, was when Sirius joined the sun and went under and then started its helical rising, which usually was right at the latter part of August. But it did that, but now it's conjuncting Mars. So go figure with that one, huh? Maybe that's part of the reason we're seeing so much
yeah,
intensity right now.
and you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
This is
No,
a
I
path
think
in
that's
life,
it.
Jeff, this is a path in life that, comes generationally in your family. How did you start learning about this?
Well, it's interesting. It happened to me in the mid 70s. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and I probably drove trucks before I drove cars. And what was interesting is my mother started pegging my girlfriends. She would peg them to the T's. Like, this girl, Jeff, she's like this and this and this. And I'm like, how do you know? I said, that can't be just mother's intuition. And she says, well, I got their astrology. And I said, come on. I said, that stuff doesn't work. And she goes, well, you better check it out before you do. My mom was really an amazing lady. She actually bought me the first Led Zeppelin record in 1969. I'll never forget that. She comes home and she says, Jeff, now how cool is that? How many guys can say their mom bought them the first Led Zeppelin record
I
in
love it.
1969? That was awesome. And she says, yeah, I was in the record store, and she said, I wanted to buy you a birthday present. She said, what's the best record? And the guy said, well, get this Led Zeppelin record. It's excellent. So my mom was always pretty tight with me. We got along very well. And so I really respected her opinion when it came to astrology. And I started checking it out. I went, wow, this is amazing. And she started pointing out things in my life. And that really, this is BC, before computers. We were actually doing charts by hand, get out the Llewellyn chart maker and draw the circle and put in all the planets and the houses and all that, which was kind of fun. I actually enjoyed that. I actually studied with a Vedic astrologer up until the 90s. And he always told me, he says, Jeff, cast charts by hand. You get so much more depth. And then I came in with the first computer program for astrology, and he couldn't believe it. He said, oh my God, that's so fast. He says, I want a copy. I said, oh, no, you must always cast chart by hand. He said, no, I want a copy. I said, yes, you do. So computers have really revolutionized astrology. And especially if you get the program set up right, that's the key right there. So anyways, that's my background. And it was really a journey. And probably the late 70s, early 80s, I started bumping elbows with a lot of the traditional astrologers, the Robert Hand, Robert Zolar, Robert Schmidt. They were doing translations into the late 80s and 90s called Project Hindsight, which revived a lot of the ancient Egyptian, Chaldean, Hellenistic, and medieval astrology, which is absolutely fascinating. And when you look back at the kings and the queens and the utility of astrology. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm a Pisces, I'm an Aries. And I'm like, oh, no. This is way different astrology. There were tools that the kings and queens would use and business people would use. One of them, which is probably the most formidable, a lot of Western astrologers know it as horary, but that's a Latinized term, but it's actually called prashna in India, or interrogation is the better word I like in English. And it's literally divinational. You do not need a birth chart. You don't need to know when you're born, who your mom, dad, and all that stuff was. You can ask questions about literally anything under the sun. And this is what the kings and the queens used it for. If we go to war, will we win? Or should I take and bequeath this lady or that one to this one? Or, whatever they did, they were using a divinational type of astrology that is absolutely amazing. And I've got books that are this thick about this stuff, written back as early as 200 to 300 BC, some of them. And absolutely fascinating stuff. And India is another whole element, China, Southeast Asia, India, and Nadi astrology, mind-blowing. So it's a whole subject that has really captured me. And it's so funny about astrology because I never went after it. I've always been into music. I owned a studio for years. I did a lot of commercial work in industrial films and acoustical design stuff. That's how I actually ended up coming out to California. It was in the 80s. I was doing a lot of design work and for different studios. And yet astrology just kept pursuing me. And I don't know if anybody listening has ever heard of the Bodhi tree, but the Bodhi tree is a really famous bookstore that was in West Hollywood. It was started back in the 70s. And it closed down, I think, somewhere around 2014. I could be wrong on the date, but it was a really famous bookstore where people from all over the world knew about it. And I used to walk around in there for years, just buying book after book after book and studying. And then I would study with so many different people. Chakrapani was a very good friend of mine. And in fact, here, I'll show you. You want to see a bad picture of me? This is Chakrapani and myself, probably almost 30 years ago. And for anybody who doesn't know who he is, Chakrapani is the guy who probably coined the phrase Vedic astrology. And he actually started in India, and he came to New York, and then he came to Santa Monica. And what's so cool about Chakrapani is he said, Americans are never going to know what, Jyotisha means. So he says, we'll call it Vedic astrology. And Jyotisha actually means the science of the light of the soul. And it's such a different type of astrology because it doesn't look at sun signs. It doesn't look at all this stuff. It looks at you as a soul having a physical experience in time and space, which is a lot deeper than, oh, I'm a Pisces, I'm an Aries. So it's a really, you'll never live long enough to learn it. It would take 10 lifetimes to learn the corpuses of some of this ancient stuff. And I'm very intrigued by it. It's absolutely amazing. It's so much more than astrology. It's the look into reality in a sense, So it's fascinating stuff.
Jeff Harman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Jeff, as you found your own path, your own spiritual reality, how did you start to notice that it wasn't just about the stars, it was about something more hidden, whether it was the paranormal, whether it was UFOs and aliens or anything that shouldn't exist?
Well, that's a good question. I like that. Well, that's what I was just kind of inferring there. Jyotisha means the science of the light of the soul. So it covers so many deep things, not only connected to the paranormal, but about this reality structure of time and space. I mean, when you think about time is one of the most mysterious things. All of us experience sunrise, noon, sunset, midnight, right? That's our perception of reality of a day. And we've been in that reality structure ever since we drew first breath. And that's what's fascinating about Vedic astrology. They actually say the conception chart is when we're conceived within the womb. That's when the genetics all starts to flare out and the vessel for the experience of life is prepared in the womb of the mother. When we exit the womb, and the air of the world fills the lungs for the very first time, and the umbilical cord is cut, that is when time starts. And, it's fascinating because if anybody's ever been in a delivery room, and I'd never had been in a delivery room until my son was born. And it was one of the most profound experiences of my life. And we actually conceived using astrology, believe it or not, picking an auspicious time to conceive. And there is another type of astrology that I do all the time. I do what we call electional astrology. And you might say, well, what is that? Well, that's picking an auspicious time to sell a house. I do so many deals where I sign contracts, or have people, I don't sign them, people sign them at a good time that I give them. And like, for instance, if you put the signature on a contract and you slide it across the table, or better yet, DocuSign, send it to your realtor, that puts the market. Well, the energy at the moment in time you do that has such an effect on its sale. Same thing with conception charts. I do marriage elections all the time. And I do also very detailed talismanic gemstones, or jewelry, if you want to call it that. I literally get untreated gems. I pick the right gem for your birth chart using the Vedic astrology, and I cast the metals as well as set the gems at a good astrological time to your birth chart. And that's what a lot of the ancient court astrologers did for the emperors and the pharaohs and on and on. This isn't just a crown or jewelry. They actually set them as talismanic jewelry. And it's really powerful. So it's a lot of different stuff here. But anyways, back to my story with my son in the delivery room. I never knew if that legend was true, that the soul was tied to the body at first breath, until my son was born. And my wife, Camille, had to go with an epidural, right? She was shaking away there. And I could actually see around the tent. She had to go C-section. So when they pulled him out, which is a bit graphic, I might add, going C-section, and I saw him come out in all the dripping and the umbilical cord, and I'm like, wow. And right when he cried, I can't remember if they had cut the umbilical cord yet or not, but right when he cried, I saw two illuminations come into the room. I didn't see any shapes or wings, and joined him right as he cried, and the whole room just illuminated. It was like an energy that was so profound. And I've heard many people say that they've really felt the energy in a delivery room. And this is what's so profound about the ancient astrology versus the modern. It really looks at the soul is joining the body in time and space in the matrix of astrology. Astrology isn't us. I believe it's portals interacting in time with the soul. And that's what's really profound about transits and progressions and doshas and different energies that are used to see when these time changes and phases come through into your life. So it's really, wow, pretty fun, pretty deep stuff. I'll tell you that. It's always fascinating to me.
Jeff Harman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got 6 minutes before we go to break at the bottom of the hour, Jeff. For you being who you are and what you're able to see and do, for a lot of people, that is a very tough thing to run through their mind. It's tough because they don't see what you're seeing. They don't see those orbs of light coming out during childbirth. They don't see, the angelic realms or the spiritual realms that so few do, like yourself. How do you, I don't want to use the word convince because I think we use that too much, but how do you win people over that what you're seeing and what you're doing is a testimony to what life is all about?
Well, that's an interesting statement. I don't think I've ever tried to win anybody over. And that's been the mysterious thing for me, is people are truly interested in astrology, because most people, especially today, are much more familiar with the real astrology than they ever were before. The internet, the YouTube, there's so many sources now that people are getting information from. And I think they're seeing that there's efficacy to it. I was in the same thing. It's like, when my mother first told me, I'm like, come on, this stuff doesn't work, right? We've all heard the debunking from the left brain scientific community going, well, there's more gravity from, the doctor in the delivery room than there is from Saturn. Well, they're looking at gravity, right? And it's not the same channel. And what's interesting, what caught me was seeing the really challenging stuff that I went through as a teenager. Just to give you an idea, my first real job was doing carpentry work when I had, the taxes taken out, and I had a social security number, and that was in the mid 70s. And my boss was actually a drill sergeant in World War II. That'll give you an idea how discipline went on that job. He was tough, and he was actually a nice guy compared to my dad. And anyways, long story short, where I'm going with this is that I did not believe in it, and today I don't think I ever have to convince anybody. Most of the people who call me for readings do so because they're interested in seeing what phases they're in. I think one of the most compelling things was my mother. This was probably the late 70s. She had said she became very interested in medical astrology. Now, people may say, geez, I didn't know there was medical astrology. Well, let me show you a book here. This is probably one of the more recent ones. This thing was printed in the 1940s by a series of doctors who were trying to go from allopathic medicine into looking at energy imbalances. Well, of course, we've all heard of Reiki, we've heard of Qigong and acupuncture, reflexology, which I love all that stuff. And these guys were saying, wait a minute, we're seeing real correlations to disease or various different functions to the human body that correspond to major outer transits. Well, I can tell you how far that got, not too far, because that was printed in the 40s. And allopathic medicine is so dominated by the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, turn on the TV, it's all you see, right? And then you get the litany of side effects it might have. Now, with that said, I have great respect for allopathic testing, and they're really good. I mean, when you get into trauma and all that, allopathic medicine's amazing. But what's stunning to me is my mother was showing me how there's clear evidence with many transits and progressions. I cannot tell you how many days a week I get calls from people. Some of them are actually doctors saying, Jeff, I've tried everything I could try. What can I do? What would astrology offer me? Location astrology. When you look at, like this morning, I was speaking to a lady, chronic illness, has been through thousands and thousands of dollars, and she's got insurance, right? The copay. And she said, where can I go to regain some health? I said, pick a sun ascending line. And she actually had a Jupiter and a sun line. Well, what does that mean? Jupiter's the third eye chakra. It also rules the liver, and the sun rules the cardiovascular as well as the general well sense of being. I had a doctor about 25, 30 years ago. He said, Jeff, I'm dying. He says, I've done everything I can do. He had prostate cancer. He said, what could I do? He said, is there anything in the toolbox of astrology that could help me? I said, Jim, he's a good friend of mine. I said, Jim, you got a sun ascending line, and it just happens to be running through Hawaii. He says, oh my God, I got a friend in Hawaii. And he was really depleted financially. He'd gone through his insurance and, he wasn't practicing. So he talked to his friend. He says, can I move over there? He says, yeah, I got an extra bedroom. Come on over. So he said to me, he called me back within 3. He said, Jeff, I can't believe it. My PSAs are dropping out of the sky. And this is a doctor who really knows allopathic medicine as well as naturopathic. He was actually a naturopath as well as an MD. Well, here's the story. His friend ended up getting a divorce. And of course, the wife kicked him out of the house and he had nowhere to go. So he ended up moving back to this area here where he had a horrific line. See, there's latitude crossings. Every individual drawing breath will have specific energies at various different longitudes and latitudes throughout the world. And when you get on those good lines, I can tell you they really have an effect. Now, will it cure all disease? I'm not sitting here saying it will, but I've seen it do drastic changes and improvements for people. Also, I've seen transits and progressions really affect health
Jeff,
for good or ill.
We're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Jeff Harman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. If you want to learn more about his astrological techniques or who he is, what he's all about, I encourage you to go to his website, Jeff Harman, HARMAN.com, jeffharman.com. When we return, how do we tell the signs? We're all looking for a sign. Most of us read stop, but energy doesn't play that way. All right, Jeff, we're clear. Our radio audience cannot hear us, but our YouTube and podcast audience can. That's a good start.
How much time do I have? Do I have time to go get one more cup of coffee?
You get about 5.5 minutes.
5.5 minutes. I'll make it fast.
4.5 minutes. Pardon me. 4.5.
All right. You got it. I'll see you in just a second.
All right. See if I got something for you guys here. Or did I change it up? Hold on. Hold on. Come on. It's not what I asked for. Close. So here. Colon. Why? Really? We're going to play that game. Okay. All right. Let's play that game. It's this one anyways. What was that one? What was that one? Let's see if I can show you guys something here quickly. We got time. What number was it? 35? 35, is that it? All right. So went to the forest yesterday. My trail camera was on the ground. Wanted to figure out who did it. So we found the culprit. Found the culprit right here. Look at this big boy. Look at him. So he's heading over here. If you can see my little mouse, he's heading right here. And all of a sudden he's going to be like, oh, hey, oh, whoa, what do we got here? What do we got here? Indirect, how you doing, man? And he's digging around, and he's like, hey, this smells like some human here. What do we got? As you can see, his head's kind of behind the tree there. And then all of a sudden, he's going to be like, there's something here. I got to play with this. Right? And so, right around here, come on, big guy. Come on. Right there, he's got my trail camera in his mouth. And he's like, oh, let me just juggle this damn thing for a little bit. Let me just juggle it. I'll try and sit on it. Oh, look at it. Oh, it's a toy. It's a toy. I'm going to put this back in my mouth. It's a toy. Oh, that's no fun. That's no fun. Yeah. Screw this. I'm going home. Mom's calling me for dinner. I'm going home. So right here, you see this little mark right here? That's my trail camera. And now, the trail camera has a little tooth mark in it and a scratch right here. That's a bear. That was when it was in the bear's mouth, right there. So, yeah, he didn't like that, but that's okay. That's okay. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. All right, let's.
Right. How are we doing on time?
We got. Hold on, let me check here. We got about a minute and a half. Check this out. This is on my trail camera here, Jeff. Look at this big guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big guy there.
Yeah. He decided that he wanted to chew on my trail camera. When you see him stop here, He's actually digging at my other trail camera. This tree, big tree right here, that's where my Sasquatch gifting site is, right here.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I had a Sasquatch sighting too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I liked your introduction.
Yeah. I'd like to take credit for it. My buddy Lee Strauss made it for me.
Mm-hmm.
He's good that way.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
You know, down the line, I might do a screen share. I got some good graphics we can share.
Well, just remember, our radio audience can't see them.
Oh, they can. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
They have
your
trouble
YouTube
with
audience
radio.
can, right?
Yeah. We just have to describe it. We got 25 seconds. Oh no, we got like 45 seconds. Who am I fooling?
All
Come
right.
on. Let's get the thing serious.
Well,
here.
that's
This
pretty
is
cool trail cam. I love it.
a talk show here. What are we doing? All right. We're gonna load that up here. If you haven't yet, give us a thumbs up. We'd greatly appreciate it.
Where's your YouTube channel? It's on spaceoutradio.com.
Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Jeff Harman is our guest. Before we bring him on in, we want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Jeff Harman is our guest. Astrologically speaking is what he's doing. Jeff, thank you so much for coming back. His website, jeffharman.com. Jeff, it's a pleasure to have you back.
It's good to be back. Good to be back, bud. Yeah.
A lot of people are always looking for a sign. We're looking for that sign, whether it's from God, whether it's from the universe, whether it's from our own intuition, Mother Nature, whoever it may be, even the coffee shop barista who is handing us our coffee in the morning. We are always looking for something to help us out, to give us clarity, to give us some sort of uniqueness to what's going on. How does it actually work when we look for signs?
Well, that relates to the question you asked earlier, which I think was a good question. You know, I've never had to convince anybody or try and sell. In fact, the last thing I'll do is ever convince anybody of anything. I mean, people are smart. And I think there's enough people that realize that we're all looking for answers. And I think that's what attracted me to these ancient, sciences. And it's not just astrology. I really enjoy the paranormal and psychological interblend with this. I have a lot of clients who are in really interesting places, remote viewing groups. Some of these guys work with the military, some are in, some are not. And I've done a lot of studies in this whole area, telepathy, as well as paranormal ghosts, hauntings, etc. And I think one of the most interesting things is we all see that there are forces outside of our three-dimensional five-sense perception of reality. And that's one of the things that's always really attracted me to the science of Vedic astrology, because they weren't just looking at signs, planets, and houses. Western astrology has become so pop. It is focused on whatever your sun sign is. In fact, it's come to the point now where everyone thinks they are their sun sign. Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, when you look at the complexity of ancient astrology, and you'll find in sidereal Vedic astrology, you're probably not even the same rising, sun sign, moon sign, and all the planets move back 24 degrees. Why? It's due to the precession of the equinoxes. See, the tropical zodiac's actually fixed. It's based on the equinoxes and solstice points. It never varies. And it's actually a very accurate zodiac, especially in what we call mundane astrology. Mundane astrology is worldly events. Like, look at what's happened just in our lifetimes. We've had, 9/11, of course, and I don't know how old you are, but I remember Kennedy getting killed. And, Eisenhower was warning the whole world about what's happening now, which is the quote unquote, industrial military complex and the infiltration of forces into governments, which is exactly what's happened. And the last guy in the United States who tried to, actually run the country got a bullet in his head. And that, of course, was John F. Kennedy. And look what we have happening right now with the whole areas between Canada, the United States, the tariff wars, and all of the other things going on. Look at Iran, Russia, and, again, China's in the mix here. So we've got a very heated situation, and this is shown in mundane astrology. Well, back to your question, what I have found is really profound. And what really convinced me was how accurate astrology, or the energies that the transits and progressions showed in my life. It was absolutely amazing. And I get so many clients, they'll call me up, why is this happening? Why is that? And I'll look at transits and progressions. I spend about 40 minutes before I do a reading. I have a whole sheet that I fill out. Even though I'm using very advanced computer systems, I write down all the cycles, the progressions, the transits. The Earth is a time machine. And it really is. You know that when a child is born, the next 100 days of that child's life, all the celestial influences and changes equals the next 100 years if you live that long. And personally, I think we should all be able to live like Methuselah did to 800 plus years old if they weren't poisoning the water, the air, and the food, as well as other things. But genetically, we are probably capable of living a heck of a lot longer than we do. And what I will credit, a lot of sciences right now, they're learning inflammation and all these health issues that affect the body, the blood flow, the cardiovascular, the lymph system. Absolutely fascinating what the ancients knew about opening that up. And maybe that's why a lot of these older cultures lived much longer. And but back to your question is, we're all looking for phases and cycles. And what struck me as the most amazing was some of the dosha systems, which, if anybody's not familiar with that, a dosha means a time lord. Everyone is in it. And this is the mysterious thing. The moon actually has 27 lunar mansions that surround in between. It's a zodiac in between the Earth and the moon. And, you don't need to research long into paranormal to find that the moon is a very mysterious satellite. We'll call it that. I always loved Dark Side of the Moon. That was one of my favorite records.
Absolutely. How could you not?
I remember when that came out in 1972. A friend of mine and I looked at each other and I said, who wrote this? I said, what planet did they come in from? It was just the most incredible. It's still the longest selling record in terms of an ensemble record in history. I don't a lot of songs and records have outsold it, but not as a record. It's stunning. And there's an eerie morbidness to it, of truth within it, about time. I love the song Time, ticking away the moments of the whole day. Well, astrology is all about time. And I think this is what attracts people to readings, is everyone wants to know what's affecting me. Even the little things, like every 2 years, we have Mars go around our chart. That drastically affects your energy. I've seen it, where when Mars crosses the ascendant, people feel like Popeye on spinach, which is in the 12th house. It's just crazy. Saturn takes 29.5 years approximately to go around your birth chart. And every human being will experience Saturn returns, the quarters of Saturn, and one of the most important, it's called Saturn's transit of the moon, In Vedic astrology, they refer to it as sati sate. It's a strange Sanskrit word or Tamil word that means the 7.5-year period where Saturn transits before, during, and after the sign that your birth moon is in. And it happens to everybody at a different time interval. It's all where you drew that first breath. That was the matrix that got printed at first breath. And it's very fascinating how accurate it is. And no two individuals will experience it the exact same way. And there's a much more ancient system. I got exposed to it about 40 something years ago. It's called the Kala Chakra Dosha. Kala means time. Chakra means wheel. So what it means is the wheel of time. And it's the infinite figure 8 that most quantum physicists talk about, how time is in an infinite loop. And really, when you think about time, what is it? If we move to a different planet, if we move to a different dimension, time would change. Genetics would change. We are so shaped by this environment, this little spaceship Earth. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Right down to a nanosecond, everything is divided through an hour, a minute, a second, a day, a year, a month, and a millennia, whatever you want to break it up. But it all corresponds to the astronomy that we're experiencing when we dropped into these vessels we call our bodies, which is very interesting. And astronomy, which is really what astrology is what I think shows those phases uniquely to everyone.
I want to ask you, because for a lot of people out there, we don't know the difference between somebody who's speaking intuitively to us, through signs like astrology or even intuition, or whether they're just giving advice. What's the difference? How can someone tell between the difference between advice and an actual intuitive message?
Well, you got to be careful with that one. That's one of my real rules. I never tell anybody what to do. I don't like giving advice. What I like doing is providing information that allows that person to make an informed decision. To me, all this stuff is like driving a car. If you're going down the road in a car, right, you're going to have people doing whatever they're going to do. They can run stop signs. They can do whatever they're going to do. They'll whiz past you, cut around, or they might drive very safely. So the more you're aware of the interaction of the scene that's coming at you, the more you're probably going to react in the most appropriate way. And that's what I think is the most powerful thing in the universe is consciousness combined with reaction, because that's what they teach you in martial arts, right? It's not how tough you are. It's how do you react to whatever comes at you. And this is the philosophy I like to use in readings is like, if I can empower that person to understand that, hey, this energy, whether it's good or ill, is coming at you for this period of time. Take my son, for instance. He just hit a 7.5-year K2 dosha. Tough. Why? And it's not tough for everybody. Everybody's different. He had 2 malefics on it, Saturn and Mars. And I knew it was going to be tough. And it was. And he's almost out of it. He's got about 1.5 years left. And let me tell you, I've spent some money keeping him out of trouble. He's had medical issues. He's had, violence. He's had all kinds of stuff. And it's almost completely over with. And it's been exceedingly emotional. Now, I see other individuals, they'll be in that same K2, what we call dosha. For anybody listening, K2 is the moon's south node eclipse point. See, they're known in Western astrology as the north and south eclipse points, which, again, we've got an eclipse coming up here right on Thursday. That is the full moon eclipse, and they're very powerful. So whenever these eclipse points either aspect your chart or you happen to move into a time phase in your life called a dosha, they can be very significant. They can be really good, or they can be really challenged because they're uniquely positioned in your chart, totally different than me or anyone else. This is a matrix. I always say, forget Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus. This is truly the matrix. It is the matrix of the soul. You can never get the same chart twice. Forget all the sun sign stuff. Do you know there are angels that rule every specific degree? And it blows my mind. I always know when I got a birth time exact. And I try and time this using an intuitive as well as mathematical method to exactly when that person drew first breath. And if I can get it to the second, I try to. And I can always tell when I have the birth time right, because the angel that rules that ascendant, that person will be very influenced in their life by it. And what's fascinating is every single planet in your chart has angelic influences on it. And this is what got lost in the modern astrology, particularly from the 1700s forward. I think some of the iron-fisted religions really did that, and it went underground. And if you go back particularly to the 11th century and prior, there are literally angels, archangels, angels, spirits, and intelligences in every single planet. And it's quite profound. And that's just the planets. One of the oldest texts known is called the Sefer Ratziel. And for anybody not familiar, the Sefer is an Aramaic Hebrew word that means book. And Ratziel stands for the archangel Ratziel on the tree of life that rules the Sephira of Hokmah, which means the wisdom of the soul. And the ancient legend was when humans were brought down into the physical realms of creations, this angel came to teach the original first humans, which in the West we call it Adam and Eve, right? The biblical story. And the Vedas have the same type of story. If you go back, the Babylonian magic and all this, it's so fascinating. They're almost the same as the Garden of Eden story. And this is where astrology kicks in. If I were to show a diagram, you could show divinity up above creation, call it God, if you will, right? And then there's these lenses that go down so that creation can even happen. And then you have this very upper world, which is called absolute in the Aramaic and Hebrew. And they say there's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions. They say this is where souls are created, and it's very divine, vast, vast beyond my comprehension. The next world's down, Braya, is where the waters of creation get much more dense. And then you have what we call the physical realms, the multiverses that many people now speak about today. And they actually claim there could be 49 parallel universes and 49 subdimensions now. Again, I can't balance my checkbook, but if that's true, and I believe it is massive. And now you start seeing people talk about Sasquatch and UFOs and paranormal things that blip in and out of this time-space continuum. How are they doing that? Well, it's kind of like a Thor movie, isn't it? You know, certain things open up and there are certain beings that I believe are here and have been here. In fact, they're actually mentioned in the Vedas. One particular race is called the Naga race, and that's just one of many that's in the Holy Puranas, as well as the Mahabharata and many other texts where they refer to this race. Some call it the serpent race. Others say no, it is a race of beings, kind of like Lord of the Rings. Maybe that's where Tolkien got it, underneath the earth. And they literally mention all these different kings and hierarchies that are in this. And they also claim that they could be dimensional too, that they come in and out of this dimension. You know, I have a story. It was, I think, right around 74. I was walking down this road to a friend of mine's house. They were all playing cards, right? And it was up in northern Wisconsin, very close to the Canadian border, and just south of Lake Superior, by the upper peninsula of Michigan, about probably 30 miles south. And I'm walking along, and it was just in the springtime when the snow was melting, and it was, you know, part dirt, part snow. And I hear this crunching. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 6 o'clock at night. It was dusk. And I look, and there's this huge being, huge. I mean, he probably was 8.5 feet tall. And he froze probably about 50 yards from me. And he took off running, just very similar to what you have in the beginning of your show. And I'm just like watching this guy. He just boogied. And across the road from where I was, there's this huge thicket of very dense woods. I don't think a deer could have ran through that without making a sound. And this huge being, probably 8.5 feet tall, maybe even taller, he went in there and never made a sound, not a single sound. And I didn't think of it until later. Camille was actually showing me a documentary about how some of these beings literally go through portals. And I thought, I bet that's what happened. Because I went up, I was very startled. I went up to my friends, and of course, they're all playing cards. Out come the shotguns and the searchlights, we're in the back of the truck looking for this thing. And, it's northern Wisconsin. It's like Dukes of Hazzard up there. Anyways, especially back in the 70s. So we're running around trying to find this thing, not a thing. And I actually said, look, this is where he went. And we didn't think to look at, footprints. We should have. But there was not a single twig or branch disrupted. And when I think about the size of this, I couldn't have got through there, without disrupting this. I don't think a deer could have. Maybe a raccoon, but not any, biped that was the size of this guy. And I think he might have dimension hopped. So, and that's the only thing that makes sense to me, where being that large could just poof, disappear into a thicket like that. And, we hear these reports a lot. I'm sure you've heard of it. And,
Oh, yeah.
I love that bear you were showing me on the break here on your trail cam. That was cool.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you that there is some sort of supernatural ability that seems to connect these creatures together. And as we got about 4 minutes with Jeff Harman to go before we go to break at the top of the hour, I want to ask you, with the planetary alignments, can they influence paranormal activity here? Like we always hear, during full moons that, asylums have their patients get a little bit freakier, or prisons. But when we look at planetary alignments, does that send cryptid creatures or paranormal spirits, and make them a little bit more active?
I have detailed studies with remote viewers as well as paranormal. And here's the interesting thing that I'll add to that. I have ancient texts that say if you're going to clear a house, you want the moon separating from malefics, which that means Saturn, Mars, or some of the other malefics like the nodes, and applying to benefics. So this is knowledge that the celestial matrix always has an influence on this planet. And taking it up to 100,000 feet, if we go back to World War I, that was a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And of course, in the United States, that's right when the Federal Reserve Act and the bankers took this place over. And they own this place, just like George Carlin said, forget the politicians, you have owners. They own everything. And it's interesting how if you go through history, just some recent events that we can all relate to, 9/11 happened on a Saturn-Pluto opposition. COVID happened precisely on the tropical Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Not close. The dinner bell, put your face diaper on, get your shots and be afraid. Stay inside, folks. All happened exactly when the tropical Saturn-Pluto conjunction aligned. So there's, again, example after example after example of how the mundane astrology aligns with major events as well as paranormal events. In fact, I did a really detailed study. A friend of mine who's now passed away, George Parks, was in Tucson, Arizona, and he used to run the local mutual UFO network there. And he had said to me, Jeff, can you do a presentation to see if there's any astrological or celestial, is what I like to call it, influences that came together? Well, we looked at Travis Walton, we looked at Minot Air Force Base, we looked at so many, Snippy the Horse, and of course, some of the other events that have gone on throughout history. And it's quite profound how we did see alignments, not only in the mundane astrology, which is what we're all experiencing, but specifically to individuals involved with that when we had the data to do that. And I've noticed that abductions that people, say that they've had happen often when Saturn is in the 8th or the 12th house, making hard aspects. And of course, not everybody will experience that. And if you look at that individual's chart, they tend to have a proclivity to that. That's more. Dr. John Mack was a friend of ours before he was killed in London. And I say killed. They say he got hit by a car. I wonder about that. But it's possible. But the bottom line is he had done detailed studies into, are these people delusional? Did they get abducted? Did this really happen? We have another friend, Barbara Lamb, who does regression therapy. And again, I can do regression. I don't get into it a lot in my practice. I do a lot of clearing, but not so much regression. But many of these individuals are absolutely getting recall, and in my opinion, proof that these people are not delusional. And we often find there's alignments with the transits and or progressions. I'm kind of blown away when I see certain clients, like I'll ask them, what happened to you at this age? And the reason I ask is because, again, the earth is a time machine. If a child is born and you have certain planetary configurations by what we call solar arc or primary direction, that's just a fancy word, that means as the earth moves each day, those progressions will play out each year. And you can actually divide it right down to weeks, days, and months.
Hold that thought. Jeff Harman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to continue with the astrological run of Earth and everything in between. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Jeff, we have about 5.5 minutes. We'll be right back, okay?
Our merch is Bigfoot approved. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have hoodies, we have socks, we have hats, we have stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can buy Spaced Out Radio merch and look the part? Our merch ain't ugly, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Lurking within the forested region of the 108-mile ranch, where the worlds of the normal and paranormal collide. CaribouCon is waiting for you, bringing together a panel of renowned experts in the paranormal, cryptid research, and UFO phenomena fields. Get ready for a spine-tingling weekend in the heart of British Columbia. Enjoy fascinating discussions, presentations, tours of local haunted areas, and skywatching. Learn from investigators, authors, and enthusiasts who explore everything from ghost hunting techniques to sightings of Sasquatch and beyond. Whether you're a seasoned paranormal researcher or just love a good spooky story, this is your chance to connect with fellow enthusiasts in one of BC's most mysterious areas. Tickets are on sale now. Grab yours before they're gone. Visit cariboucon.com for details, tickets, and updates.
Are you ready to dive into the weird and wonderful world of cryptids, cartoons, and chaos? Meet Dirty Filth, Spaced Out Radio's resident cartoonist and master of the mysterious. Every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, join him live on the Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel for Cryptid Cartoons with Dirty Filth, a hilarious hour where he sketches bizarre beasts, shares mind-bending stories, and battles his mischievous cats. Whether you're a UFO enthusiast, paranormal fan, or just love quirky art, Dirty Filth filters the universe through his unique lens, creating cartoons that capture the strange, dark, and supernatural. Follow Dirty Filth on X at Filth1 or Facebook at Dear Filth for more filthy fun. Find his link in the description below.
Spaced Out Radio wants to hear from you. We love our community, and your voice truly matters. Drop a comment after every show and let us know what you thought. Agree with our guests? Tell us why. Disagree? We want to hear that too. We read every single comment. jump into the live chat during the broadcast, and be part of the conversation in real time. Got a killer topic idea? Your suggestions help shape the show. And if you want to take it even further, join our Patreon for bonus content and direct feedback opportunities with Dave and the team. This is your show as much as it is ours. Whether you're a longtime listener or brand new, we want your thoughts, your questions, and your ideas. And let's keep building this incredible community together. Spaced Out Radio, where the conversation never ends. What are you waiting for? We're listening.
With 5 explorable Gold Rush-era buildings said to be home to spirits of a time forgotten, the 108-mile heritage site in the heart of BC's Caribou region offers a unique opportunity for thrill seekers and history buffs. For an evening of historical fun, step into our guided ghost tours, where spine-chilling stories of Gold Rush legends and unexplained encounters come alive. For those craving even more, inquire with us about conducting a hands-on paranormal investigation of your own. And if you're truly brave, book our haunted sleepovers. Spend the night at our B&B inside the McNeil House to truly experience this historical landmark and its ghostly secrets firsthand. For booking or inquiries, go to haunted108.com.
All right, I am back. Thank you to Kitty Caddywhack for our lone super chat tonight. Thank you also to T-Bone for gifting 2 memberships. We greatly appreciate it. Anybody jump in here late? Let me take a quick look here. And I think we're caught. I'm marking some questions for you, Jeff. And we're good there. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up on the YouTube side. It helps with our algorithms to continue to grow this channel. We appreciate it. And we're coming back in 5 seconds, everybody. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We have a great show with Jeff Harman going on where we are talking about astrology. Before we kick things off again, we want to say hello to all of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Ragmatical. Ragmatical is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's bring in Jeff Harman for another hour here on Spaced Out Radio. He's an astrologist. He's somebody who looks into the paranormal. He's been doing this for over 50 years. And Jeff, we're very thankful that you are here with us tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You bet.
All right. Right before the break, we were kind of looking at the tie-in between the paranormal and planetary alignment. My next question would be, are there certain astrological events that increase paranormal or supernatural activity?
You know, we just had one. A lot of astrologers were talking about, usually astrologers pay attention to the major outer planet conjunctions, squares, and oppositions. The trines can happen too. We had a Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and it actually happened in the very first, what we call Egyptian bound of the tropical zodiac of Aries. Now, sidereal still see it in a different position, but that's an interesting thing, because if you look at the glyphs of all the planets, all the planetary glyphs come from 3 symbologies: the circle, which is the sun, the crescent, which is the moon, and the cross, which is time and space in this dimension. And if you look at what is Saturn, Saturn is the cross over the crescent of the moon. Previously concretized things, karmas, and you could say incarnations that now release through the lower crescent of the moon, which is also parallel to the conscious mind. See, the moon has always been considered parallel to the lower conscious perception of reality, which is really interesting stuff. I show these diagrams a lot. I could share the screen to show them, but I'll just explain it right now. Psychology likes to tell us we have a subconscious mind and a conscious mind, right? That's kind of the old model. But you could take that down the rabbit hole a whole bunch farther. And what's interesting is consciousness, I think, is starting to expand. And this gets into the yugas. We had a Saturn-Neptune conjunction last February. And what did we see happening? Now, I know if I mention this guy's name, I'll get hate mail and I'll get love mail. But Donald Trump actually just approved declassify all this stuff on paranormal, UAP, UFOs, whatever you want to call it. Well, and everybody expected, wow, this is going to be incredible, right? We're going to hear everything, Area 51, all this paranormal stuff. Well, it has been, some of it's been released, but a lot of it hasn't. And I think the reason why is non-government agencies, which have a lot to do with military development, et cetera, who have really had a lot of interaction with this stuff, are withholding it, or they're not letting it come out as quickly as they want, and maybe they don't want it to. So, what I've noticed is these alignments have a huge effect on society, and so does our solar system going around the central sun. Now, a lot of people say to me, geez, Jeff, I'm a flat earther, because I get that one all the time, right? And I will admit, there's some very mysterious things with the ice walls, many other things that go on with the curvature of the earth that are questionable. There's no question about that. And there are also people who say that, we hit a wall of almost like water as you go out into space. Now, we see these rockets going off, and I actually think they are going into space. And I don't want to get into the whole debate about round versus flat earth. But one thing's for sure, we're not being told the truth. I'll say that. And there's a lot of mysterious things everyone's questioned, the moon and all this and some of the explorations. And of course, now we've got Elon Musk wanting to go to Mars. And I actually do believe that there's space travel. Personally, I do believe that. And I also find that there is some very interesting ancient documents that speak to this stuff, particularly in the Vedas. They actually talk about how the universes get destroyed somewhere between every 4.3 and 4.6 billion years. That's a long time. You could have a lot of incarnations in that amount of time. And they actually say, if you look at, and this is parallel to some of the religious stuff that we hear in many different texts, the Vedas, the Western biblical stuff. And what's fascinating is the physical realms might just be a mixture of good and evil. And they actually say that the evil spirits are incarcerated into matter itself. And this is also addressed in the Vedas, and it's in metaphorical stories. And there's some really good texts that have made a direct comparison to the Vedas and some of the other documents supporting the Vedas and the Torah documents. It's pretty stunning how similar they are. They all talk about this war in heaven, and there was this massive, movement into the material creation of matter. Because if you think about it, the only thing that's different between the hair on our heads and the, dust on these computer screens we all stare at every day is molecular makeup. It's all just energy. You look at atoms, they're protons, electrons, and all the other things they're discovering, the neutrinos and all these other empty spaces. It's all just energy held into specific states. Well, what's fascinating when you talk about genetics, or ghosts and all this other stuff. The physical realms, everything will be born, it will grow, it will mature, it will experience, and it will decay. It will decay in the physical realm, but not in the spiritual. So now you get into the psychology of this subconscious conscious mind, but also the lower conscious mind. And there's actually a text that I refer to a lot. It's probably one of the more profound texts out there about this. It's called the Sharar Hagilgum. It's an ancient text, not that ancient. It was put out by Rabbi Luria. If anybody's ever heard of him, he's one of the more prominent Kabbalistic rabbis in the middle centuries. It's a profound document. Share or Sharar means gate in Aramaic and Hebrew, and Hagilgum means cycling of the souls. And it addresses exactly what I'm speaking about, is how the spirit is actually knocked out. They say at first breath, this little mark we all have right here, which is the mark of silence, knocks us out so that we forget. Now, a lot of people are intuitive. They do remember past lives. We hear all the time about children who are coming forward and saying, I used to be so-and-so. And the mother thinks they're crazy at first. And then finally they run over there and say, oh my God, there was a lady that just died, or a guy who was named what my kid says they were. You said, I don't know if you've heard stories about like this, but there's a lot of them out there. And some of them are pretty well documented. Robert Monroe and so many paranormal psychiatrists have really gotten into this stuff. And I love this stuff. And it proves that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. So that's why I really like to differentiate myself from the astrologers who just think, oh, you are your astrology. Because no, you're not. Your astrology is actually interacting with the soul. And when we get knocked out, this is why an infant can't at first see, talk, or walk. By the end of the first year, the little seed is really getting strong. Now they're standing up, right? Some are actually walking a little bit. The second year is profound. That's the moon year. By the 7th year, the baby teeth are falling out. And we just see such a profound genetic explosion of change from infancy, or from the fetus, if you will, to that first 7 years. And this never stops until the fat or skinny lady sings. So everything in the physical realms will be born, it will grow, it will mature, experience atrophy, and die, all in its own karmic time frame. And I don't care if you're talking about the human kingdom, the alien kingdom, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the mineral kingdom. They even say all the universes, and it's interesting about time. What is this 4.3 billion year reference to? Is it to Earth years or something other in the galactic realms of perception of reality? So when you really take in what is time, time is our perception of reality. They actually say God might have done us a favor knocking us out. If we could see all the spirits, intelligence, ghosts, disincarnates, and elementals around us, we would probably flip our cookies. I don't think we could walk across the room because we'd be afraid we're going to hit somebody. Couldn't drive a car, right? So we are wired to the three-dimensional 5-sense world. And we're so wired that when we exit the body known as death, we really, a lot of, and that's where I have to say religions have failed, not all of them, but a lot of them have really sorely failed with the dogma of not getting people more aware of these lokas and dimensions that are mentioned in many of these ancient texts. In fact, that is a word the Puranas and the Vedas specifically talk about. There's 7 layers right around the earth itself. And many of your ancient cultures knew this stuff. The Egyptians, and of course, the Hunas in Hawaii, the Mayans, we could go on and on. The Babylonians, many of your secret societies in Europe knew this stuff. And they were very aware that, we're like in a Western movie here. We're just passing through. And even though life seems very arduous sometimes to us, it is really brief when you stop and think about what the heck is time. And why I bring that all up is because that's more what ancient astrology was paying attention to, rather than just your sun sign, So it really is a fascinating journey. And it also wakes us up to the possibility that, we need to step outside of our lower conscious perception of reality And this is, we're all capable of telepathy. I had a great podcast. If anybody ever wants to check out my podcast, it's Jeff Harman, Astrologer. I had a lady on about a year ago. Her name was Laura Hirsch, and her son, you probably heard of the telepathy tapes, right? Amazing stuff, where this psychiatrist or doctor had figured out a way to allow autistic children to, it's called spelling to speech. So they can spell on this very simple device and communicate what they want to say, because a lot of them can't speak. Well, what they're finding is these so-called autistic children, they speak to animals, they talk to deceased relatives, they literally have conversations with animals, they can read people's minds. And of course, the telepathy tapes, if you ever want to check those out, they're amazing for anybody who's not familiar with it. And it proves that the lower conscious mind is actually an attenuator. It actually dumbs us down to be able to experience this dense physical time-space reality. And it's very important. It's very important. I wouldn't happen. I think there's a real divinity to it, actually. And the religions were right about a lot of that. But on the other hand, what is astrology? Astrology is the interaction of energies and time and space. I always say the earth is a time machine. It really is. It's a divine time machine. And the more we get that, I think the more we're prepared to advance, because there are so many advanced souls here and ascended masters who can really connect into these different dimensions and realms. And it's, again, a blessing that we're not always having that hatch door open, because if we did, I think we'd flip our cookies, So, I find a lot of souls are what people call ghosts. Many of them have been traumatized. I've done clearings on buildings and places and people where it's quite profound. And I also notice that there are certain times and progressions in a person's life when these release. I've had a lot of clients that, well, I'm a walk-in, right? Well, or they've had some experience that totally shifted their life. And this is addressed in a lot of these ancient documents. So it's so much more than just astrology. It's really a look-see into our perception of reality.
Jeff, I want to ask you, because you brought up, time there for a second. Do you believe then, if time is a construct, that we can time travel?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think time travel's been going on a long, long time. The government's been all over that like a cheap suit. They've literally been accosting places that they think are portals and are, in my opinion. I think time travel is a real reality. The Philadelphia experience, you look at Montauk and so many other experiments that have been going on, Area 51, there's a lot of stuff going on in this area of time. And time is a very divine thing when you think about it. You just think about what time is. Time is a measurement of some elapsement, however you want to measure that, in space. Can't have time without space. So that's why they call it a time-space continuum. And I really believe that when we start seeing that, we really have to blend in consciousness, because your perception of reality is such a factor to our perception of elapsement of time. Did you ever get in an accident? I know every time I've ever had like a really traumatic accident, it's like, wow, I'm watching this in slow motion time. It just seemed like it took, a minute to happen when it happened in a split second. And this is the interesting thing about our optics and our whole perception of reality, the way we're wired. And all of this happened right at first breath. And that last breath, which we will all stop taking sooner or later, is an amazing journey into the next, what they call lokas. Lokas are dimensions, and there's a heck of a lot of them, they say. One of the books I always love to mention, I'd love to throw this book out of helicopters. It's a book called The Magus of Strovolos. It was written by a gentleman named Kyriakos Markides. He was from Cyprus, which of course is the island right off of, the Holy Land and all that, and Greece and Israel and all that. Well, what's fascinating is this guy heard about this man called the Magus of Strovolos, who did these healings and could do all this mystical stuff very ascended master. So he moved to the United States and became a professor of sociology. And he went back and ran into this guy healing people of completely incurable diseases and doing all kinds of really interesting stuff. Like taking disincarnate souls and pulling them off of people who were possessed, etc., and could reconstruct bones, everything else. This is a book I'd love to throw out of helicopters and have everybody at least read once before they die, because it is such an awakening. And another book I mention a lot is a book called 30 Years Among the Dead. That was written, that's a morbid title, but it was written by a psychiatrist named Dr. Carl Wickland. One of the most profound texts you'll ever read. He was a psychiatrist who did not believe in anything paranormal. And he ended up marrying a woman who was a psychic channel. Well, he's the guy who invented shock therapy treatment, okay, which is still used to this day. They use a little different type today that's much more dangerous. He used what they call a Windham generator, which was a very high voltage, but very low current. And it would shock the disincarnate soul, which we call a ghost, out of the aura. And his wife would take that individual in and have dialogue. Now, this is nothing new. This has been being done by a lot of people who do regressionary therapy work, which I love that type of stuff. And what it proves is that nobody dies. Nobody dies. But the lower consciousness that we have is so central to whether or not you escape from Alcatraz and get out of here, or you get stuffed back into another body sooner or later. And that's a very mysterious topic too. When does a soul actually get fished out of the lower astral planes and reincarnated? Now you have to enter something else in, which is called karma. What is karma? Well, us Westerners, we always get a little nervous. I know I did when I first heard the word karma, right? But it's really the connections to the soul root, which is deep stuff, because they say we are connected oftentimes to the parents, the relationships, the children, the interactions we have in our daily lives in a much more mysterious way than we know. Maybe all of it isn't past life. Maybe it's new karmas coming in. The Vedic astrology actually divides all these different divisions of karma. Some of it is stuff you have to come here and experience. Your genetics, your parents, right? There's other karmas that you share with other souls, dissipating that karma, almost like a grounding rod with electricity. And then last but not least, you get to create. You have free will, right? A lot of people say, oh, you don't have free will. It's all fate. No, I think we definitely have free will. And it's fascinating how in Vedic astrology, it shows these different time periods where certain planetary configurations, they're called yogas, in the chart actually show when you have more free will, and other times where you're really burning the karma. The rubber's really hitting the road and you're grounding out some deep stuff. And it's different for everybody. It's mind-boggling, and no one fully understands it. I certainly don't claim to, but the more I study it, the more humble and more fascinated I get by it. It's absolutely amazing, because we're all looking for answers, or at least some direction to what's happening to us, and why do we get these experiences, So it's really, really wild.
We have under 2 minutes to go before we go to break.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the hour, Jeff Harman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Jeff, you mentioned that you think the government has been doing time travel for a number of years. How do you figure that? I believe you, by the way, because I've heard that too. But how do you know?
Well, because I got some interesting clients, I'll say that. They can't say much, but I've really been blessed to have so many different clients. Some of them have been in some really interesting places over the years. And I'm always interested at why they would talk about astrology. I mean, I've had some people who are like top level psychiatrists in state boards, and I can't tell you who they are, or people in the Federal Reserve, or people in military, or what have you, bring up things. People who worked in underground bases, they say, I can't say much, but I'll tell you this, and you hear some of the stuff that's going on. And also too, for years I've been poking around. I mean, Camille and I, God, we've met so many fascinating people. Like Dr. Lear, I used to know him. I don't know if you know who he was. He was a medical doctor, removing implants, taking them to labs, and the stuff we hear. If anybody has not seen The Age of Disclosure, go see it. It's an amazing documentary. Loved it. And in fact, we go to the Hollywood Disclosure thing down here, and what's so fascinating about this, you got scientists, you got people in the military coming forward and saying, look, these craft are literally able to do what they're doing because they're creating a new time-space dimension in order to do it. How does a craft go from, I talked to one Marine, they're studying some of the bases off here in California, right off the coast of Santa Barbara. And these craft come out of there at propagation speeds. There's nothing we got that would even begin to hold. You blow the rivets out of the plane trying to go that fast. So it would disintegrate. So, and these things come in and they go into the water and literally into underground bases at levels that are stunning. And how do they do this?
Hold that thought. Jeff Harman, we got him till the top of the hour on Spaced Out Radio.
Listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Just flying on by tonight.
Yeah. I had a motorcycle shut down, total electricity off. It was wild. I see a lot of stuff out here right now. A lot of stuff. It's pretty wild. Yeah, I used to track craft in the 70s. It was amazing. And there's no way, some of this stuff was definitely reverse engineered military stuff. Really, I think there's a lot of stuff going on that our government's involved with, and many governments are. They're just not telling everybody about it. It would freak the general populace out.
I think that's a big portion of it right there.
Right there. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I've actually seen people shapeshift into huge beings, and their hands have turned into claws.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I said. Oh my.
That's some good woo right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm mentioning. The Holy Puranas, they actually mention these beings. As Lord of the Rings was an amazing movie because there's a lot that Tolkien had in there that I think was extracted from much of the ancient texts, that were referred to these different underground races, and
right.
Well, the military has fights with them. Pretty wild stuff.
Just trying to find something here. Come on, open up. Try this again. Oh, that not open. Oh, that's not it. Just trying to open up something here for you. Oh well. Try this. That'll work. There it is.
Yeah, maybe I'll share this diagram, and if anybody wants to go see your YouTube channel, they could do it, and then I could keep it. It's a really cool diagram. I'll briefly put it up if that's all right. Something like that work for you?
Yeah, we can do that. We just need to explain it for our radio audience.
You bet. Yeah, and that'll drive them to watch your YouTube if they want to see it. Well, you got a nice production. I like all your stuff that you got put together. It's really great.
Thank you.
You bet. It's a lot of work.
Doing it a long time. Here's a nice coyote for you. Back here. Where are you, buddy?
Kind of looks right like I grew up there. Oh, yeah, that's a nice coyote, yeah.
He's a nice one.
That's cool, yeah.
No cats, though. I was hoping to get some cats this time.
I had a dog. She was part wolf and part Alaskan Malamute. That was the most badass dog. I mean, that dog could rip anything apart. I mean, it would kill porcupines. I used to ride a horse up in northern Wisconsin, and that dog, I'm telling you, she would pull down 250-pound deer and drag them across the lake. And the first time we saw it, she got lucky. She found a roadkill. No, she was hauling them home left and right. And the game warden finally said, you're going to lose your dog if you don't get her to stop. So, but
we got 35 seconds. Thank you so much to T-Bone and Kitty for the super chats. T-Bone, also thank you for handing out 2 gifted memberships to our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate that. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. No ugly swag. And of course, get your tickets right now for Caribou Con. CaribouCon.com. We get going in 25 days, everybody. CaribouCon.com. Make sure you check it on out. We're coming back in 5 seconds, everybody. This is the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Jeff Harman is our guest. JeffHarman.com is his website. And Jeff, before we get to some audience questions, right during the break, you mentioned something about you seeing shapeshifters. You have to tell us this story.
It's interesting. There's that text I was talking about earlier called the Sefer Ratziel, which was believed to have brought to humanity, or the first Adam and Eve, if you will. The Ratziel is the name of the archangel Ratziel. And I have a couple of different translations. You could buy that book. There's a lot of English translations, but the one that I have is very unique. And I was studying with a guy who was very versed in this ancient system of Aramaic Hebrew. And because the cannellation marks are different on some of this stuff. And there's so many secrets to this stuff. See, there's gematria, notricon. This is all numerology that's encoded. I actually make gem pieces that have your guardian angel, which is literally the inner 7 positions of your planets in your birth chart. There's a letter, and each of those get rearranged in a certain hierarchy. And then you can do the numerology to see how your soul's connected. You can actually see angels. It's pretty bizarre. And believe me, it's not something I made up. It's very ancient and no one fully understands it. But back to the shape shifting and why I brought that up. We were studying this text and I noticed the guy's hand shifted into like a claw. And I thought, okay, that's just my imagination, right? Except he looked at me and he put it under the table real sheepishly because he saw that it shifted into a claw. I thought, okay, so this is not my imagination, right? And he got a little bit sheepish and he said, I got to get going here pretty soon. And I thought, wow, now that's wild. And I have also seen out here in the land of the fruits and nuts, also known as Hollywood, I was in a hallway once and I saw this guy shift. He just totally shape-shifted. It was like Galaxy Quest, except he was a big, almost albino looking type being, looked really weird. And I've seen different things like that where people will shape shift. I always mention that movie. It was back in the 80s, They Are Among Us, or They Live, I think it's something. Remember the billboards? If you put on a pair of glasses, you would see the different people who weren't human, or you would see messages coming through in different signage and so on and so forth that would do this. And sometimes I think that's how it is if we can look past our visual sight and turn on our you could say, astral sight. And it's, again, a blessing that it isn't always on, but there is ways to do that. And a lot of it's just decoupling from your visuals. There's training exercises you can use, like you can stare at things and you can literally, allow your eyes to drift. There's also meditational exercises and training exercises you can do to get into different meditative states, which gets into very detailed stuff. But I was very blessed to see some of this stuff, and it was pretty wild. And the most interesting thing is usually the people that I've seen, I haven't seen that many, but the one, they noticed it. And that's what was really shocking to me, is they noticed that I saw it. So we're dealing with, I think, a plethora of beings on this planet. And again, I mentioned, you and I were talking on the break about Lord of the Rings, which is, again, an incredible movie. And what was fascinating about Tolkien's work, and C.S. Lewis too, which these were incredible writers, had many secrets to the universe, and astrology was placed in it. Look at Narnia. A lot of references there to the four elements, the four children. You see the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And look at Lord of the Rings, the underground races. Well, I had mentioned earlier in the Puranas, it talks about the Naga race. And again, there's different references, the Vedas, the Artha Vedas, the Yajur Veda, and the Puranas, the Mahabharata. There's a lot of different texts that sprinkle this different information in there. And some of them are the Vishnu Purana will blow your hair back. It literally talks about this race of beings, and they may be interdimensional, that have all these kings and hierarchies. It's wild stuff. And then you go watch Lord of the Rings, and you go, well, this whole underground thing, of course, they had actors, like Liv Tyler and so on and so forth. And the guy who played, Agent Smith of The Matrix, remember, he was one of the elf people with his ears. So it's fascinating to see how Hollywood and many writers, look at Philip K. Dick, when he wrote Blade Runner. He also wrote the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger on Mars. I forget the Total Recall. And fascinating how grabbing some of this stuff out of places, you wonder, where are they getting all of this? Hollywood's long been a suspect of a propaganda machine, that a lot of things that they put out, like Spielberg was said to have been consulted with the military very heavily on Close Encounters. And I've heard this in a lot of detail. So a lot of that was put out there to kind of gloss over what people might actually, it's just a movie, you see. So, and there was also some very factual things in that, where, they had gassed, remember, the people and the animals as they got close to this mountain. And so there's a lot of interesting Men in Black. Look at Spielberg was behind Men in Black. And I think it might be a lot closer to Men in Black than we know. That's my opinion. From some of the little bit of things that I've been exposed to and heard, and people I've talked to, there's a lot more going on than we know. And again, it may be a lot more like, again, Men in Black than we know. It's a very interesting book. Someone says, is there a good book out there to start learning with? Well, what subject? I mean, it's
well, I think the question was more towards astrology.
Oh, towards astrology. Well, it depends on the kind of astrology you want to study. If you want to stick with the more traditional Western, Egyptian, Hellenistic, and medieval path, or do you want to go more to the Vedic path? A great starter book in Vedic astrology is the Light on Life by David Sabovda and Hart Defoe. It's a great book. They're on my website. If you go to Jeff Harman, I suggest a lot of books that are in there. I love some of the old Egyptian stuff. There was there's a lot of great texts that have been surfacing over the last 30, 40 years. David Pingree in the 60s and 70s had done some amazing translations on Vedic texts and medieval texts, and were drawing conclusions. And there was, I forget the name of it now, but there was a text discovered in the 1st century AD that has raised a lot of scholarly eyebrows. Did the West give information to India, or did India give it to the West? I think it's the latter. But I think that all of this astrology came from angels. And that's why I don't think anybody shared it that much. Yes, a lot of kingdoms and wars intermixed a lot of the old astrology. There's definite evidence to that. But when you look at the details, they are not even coy about it. They literally have said the seers were called the rishi astrology, who were literally talking to angels. Many of the rabbinical texts say the same thing, that they would literally have angels visit them and teach them. There's absolutely no way somebody sat on mountains or camels and observed the complexity that you see in the ancient astrology. It's absolutely mind-blowing when you see how complex it is. Even with all the computing tools that I have right now, it's mind-blowing to fathom just how complex it all interrelates. And I'm doing some work with AI right now, which I hope to come out with some really good tools here very soon. And even that, you have to police it, because it's really, you can literally take ephemerises. For anybody who's not familiar with that, what an ephemeris is, it is a charting of the heavens over great periods of time. And one of the ephemerises I'm working right now can go back literally to 13,000 BC, track every planet. In fact, NASA uses this, JPL uses it, and many other places in the world that have space agencies and satellites and all this stuff. They're literally using this same exact ephemeris. And you can go forward as much as 17,000 years. And those planets, they will be right exactly are in the sky to this mathematical computation. So we're dealing with a matrix here, a synchronized, very accurate matrix. And these planets are not kind of close when they're to the millisecond. They're that accurate. And I know a lot of people say, yeah, but there's warble and there's this. And we are dealing with a machine, a celestial mechanics machine that is stunningly synchronized. It's beyond comprehension. But here's what's the mysteries to it all. It's an interactive consciousness. This is why interrogation, horary, and prashna, which are all the same, you can cast a chart and say, where's my keys? I get this all the time. Or, am I going to die? Or I get people, I do surgery elections. And I've had surgeons tell me, Jeff, we follow procedure to the T. And certain days, it goes smooth as silk. On other days, we don't care what we do. It just never works out very well. There's problems with the patient, overbleeding, this. And I'll say, well, what was the days that happened? And I can't get all the data, but the ones that I've spoken to who give it up, they say, what happened? And I'm like, well, you had the moon oppose Mars. See, you were mentioning earlier about how police stations and so many different statistical networks have said we get much more crime on certain energies, full moons, etc. You can feel when a new moon comes in. It's very quiet. Everything's kind of shut down. It's stunning how much influences. I mean, just look at the oceans, the tides, power that takes to move the oceans. Try carrying a bucket of water and then think about what that's doing. The moon's tides. It's just absolutely amazing. So we are in a celestial literal matrix that's interacting uniquely with each soul, because the time that we were tied into the body at first breath, that's when time and perception of reality started. And it's really very divine. I think it's not just some, arbitrary thing. I think it's divinity. I really do. And this is why the demonic forces are a part of this. I think no matter, it's like a Star Trek movie. You could go to probably many different realms and dimensions or multiverses. You probably find in the material world some elements of good and evil, because it's just wired into, it seems, to the construct of molecular matter. And not even just molecular. When you start talking about etheric energy and plasma, all this stuff is still made up of juxtaposing energetic forces, which are just beginning to be understood. It's I know I used to teach a physics class, and I found out real quick we don't know much. What we do know is amazing, but it's there's things going on that we're discovering, and I think the military and advanced researchers are finding out stuff right now that's mind-boggling. And there's been stories where beings have actually showed up and said, don't play with this. There's been stories of explosions in labs, underground labs, Area 51, different places, where they've literally had beings come in and say, you can't go too far. That's why I don't think we'll ever see an all-out nuclear war, because there's overwhelming evidence that they interfere. They stop it. They've as much as said so. There's been beings who've literally told the governments, we'll stop it if you ever, because life is too precious here. I think it's much more sacred than we know. When you think about what happens in the womb of a mother or an animal, man, genetics is way past stunning. I mean, when you think about, I actually showed this on a YouTube thing, and anybody can see it, where the first expansion of the spine over the first 10 hours of conception, it's mind-boggling. And this happens in humans, it happens in animals and plants. I mean, it's stunning when you look at the genetic codes unfolding. I remember Sir Francis Crick and Watson, they won the original Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but all the congressmen in the United States, oh, we're going to know everything, right? We're going to know why you got this and why you got blue eyes and brown eyes, whatever you got, right? And I think it was Crick stood up, Sir Francis Crick stood up and said, maybe, he said, maybe in 1,000 years, we'll understand just what we have recognized here. It's that complex. And, we could splice genes. We could possibly clone a lot of stuff right now. I know a lot of that's going on. There's a lot of experimentation going on in genetics, altercations, cloning, all this stuff, and integrating like a Terminator movie, a lot of this robotics AI with the literal genetics of life itself. But to create life from scratch, I think we're never going to do that. Not the way you and I and everyone else. We're really spiritual beings having a physical experience, and consciousness is beyond magic. AI will never have what we have, and that is the ability to feel. And it may act like it could be programmed like it, but how could it have the emotion and love and compassion? It can empathize for sure and be programmed. And some of it's scary how empathetic it gets. A lot of people are listening to their AI like their greatest, friend, which can be dangerous too. It's assisted intelligence at best, and it's going to get, I think, really creepy in the next 10 years where it could go. It could get like a Terminator movie if we're not really careful. That's Pandora's box in a lot of ways. It's incredible, and I'm blown away by it, but there's nothing like the magic of a soul. And if you read the Sharia Gilgam, that's the text I talked about earlier, that book will blow your hair back. And it's literally, they say your soul has 5 layers to it. And the upper layer is literally right connected to divinity itself. And it's not wired like this brain I'm talking with is. It's much more divine and maybe much more knowledgeable than anything we're wired to be able to speak or think about. And that relates to what I said earlier, like the telepathy tapes. These so-called autistic kids are blowing away what we all can do normally. They can read minds. They can talk to animals. They can. I had a lady on, her son was riding a horse, and the horse is telling him that his best friend just died. And his mother said, that's interesting. So she goes to the equine center and says, my son said that your horse had a friend that just died 6 months. Oh yeah, they were inseparable. And the horse's name was the same name that her son said it was. So the telepathic communication this autistic child who can't speak is having with this horse, he actually said it spelled the name that the horse was called by humans. It was named, of course, we name animals, right? So we think animals are stupid. Well, they're not nearly as stupid as we think. And fascinating how this horse could telepathically communicate to this kid. They weren't having a dialogue, So there's so much, our minds are so centered in what we believe, And I always say, when I hear someone say, well, I believe, I always get really nervous. I'm like, okay, that person has a right to believe what they believe, but I'm really at a point where I don't know what I believe. I'm just experiencing. And I think that's possibly a healthier way to look at life, where you don't think you know, and you know what you know, but you are really in a position of observation, which I think is a safer place to be. And that way you're not telling anybody what to do. You're just helping who you can. That's maybe a different way to look at life. So I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. That's for sure. But
we got 5 minutes to go. Got
Yeah.
time for one more question here. So let's go to this question here. Jeff, have you used astrology to help a business make a decision? And what was the outcome?
Oh God, all the time. I have companies that put me on retainer, and I also have a lot of individuals who are starting businesses. Oh yeah, you can use it for relationships. You can use it for, like I've had people, Vastu is another area I get into, but interrogation astrology can use for anything under the sun. Like I've had CEOs of companies, well, we're going to hire such and such is a key player. We want to be very careful. If we hire this person, are they going to disrupt the apple cart? And of course, a lot of these companies are very adept at assessing talents and skills, but they want to hear what the astrology says. There's an old saying, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And now we could probably say trillionaires. But yeah, a lot of people I work with use astrology. They ask questions, or they're looking for auspicious times to sign contracts, take trips, or release things. So that's electional astrology. So you can use it in a lot of ways. And other things we look at too is the cycles that various individuals are going through. Like I've had various people in companies or in just small, relationships, like, why is so-and-so falling off the beam? What's going on? And we'll look at, is this a temporary cycle, or is this a cycle that's much, much deeper? I have a very good friend and colleague. She was actually with me on my hosting a while back. She had the Saturn-Neptune conjunction over her ascendant last February. She has literally lost motor skills. She's really having a rough time. Now we're finding, as the astrology separates, it's getting better. And we're doing some things with acupuncture and a neurologist that we're reconnecting what this broke. And that, again, goes back to what my mother told me 50-something years ago, that literally the major planetary cycles that go over individual, their ascendant, their midheaven, their descendant, or heavy aspects. Some of these are once in a lifetime aspect. It takes 165 years, almost 180 years for Neptune to go around your chart. 250 years for Pluto. The United States just had a Pluto return. It's 250 years old. And look at the destruction we saw since 2020 forward. And look at what we see going on right now. Canada has a lot of things going on. Australia, every country has a birth chart as well. So there's a lot of ways to look at business. And I do surgery elections for people. Again, I can't tell anybody what to do, but I can tell them or help them suggesting real estate elections. Do that all the time. Filing corporations, releasing products, grand openings of restaurants, all kinds of stuff. It's really a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a guy years ago. I went into his restaurant because I couldn't get a table at the restaurant right next door. And he had 3 flies. So I figured, well, I'll chase one of them out of there and go take a table. And I said to him, why is this guy so busy and there's nobody here? He says, I don't know what to do. He says, I'm going broke. He says, I'm borrowing money from the family to keep the place open. I said, when did you open this place? He said, I remember it was this day. And I looked at the chart. I said, no wonder why. I said, it's like nobody sees you. He said, that's exactly right. And we got great food. I said, here's what you do. I said, you got to reopen the business at a good time. And I said, I'll tell you what, I said, you give me some free meals, I'll do it for you. So I picked a new time. He reopened right when I told him, I said, have a big party, change the menu, really make it different, alter things. And he did. He ended up selling that place at a huge profit. It was packed after that. And I said, you're only going to get business at night. And he did, because the grand opening was at night. It was the only time I could find, because he was really on the edge. He was like going bankrupt. And I said, reopen this place. He did it, I think, within 2 or 3 weeks. I found the time. So that's some examples. I mean, yeah, business, you can use it for business. Again, you also have to look at each individual cycles. There are some times you may hit a lull in life that you got to wait a little while. It's like a stop and go light, and also location astrology is stunning. I've seen people move from one locality to another, or have transits and progressions coming through that they soar to the moon or they sink to the bottom. And just knowing this stuff allows you to operate with more awareness. Again, it's like weather. You can't change the weather, but you can certainly react to it more intelligently.
Jeff Harman, everybody. Thank you, Jeff. JeffHarman.com. Coming up in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller and Grant Baker with the UFO Report.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, my friend. It was a good
Appreciate
show.
you.
We went off, yeah.
We'll do it again.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dave, and we'll talk to you soon, huh?
Absolutely. Say hi to Camille for me.
You bet. If we can do any show, I certainly will. If we can do any share on this where I can drive, people from my channel to you and you to mine, that'll be great. So
Absolutely.
Is there some way to share like that?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay. Well, David,
right,
you take care, my friend. You bet. Bye now.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Stop now! You're under arrest! Hands up! Don't move!
Don't get caught without your Spaced Out Radio merchandise. We have t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, socks, hats, stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can look the part? We don't have ugly merch, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Dirty filth. Dirty filth. Dirty filth.
Object is heading north 045 degrees. It's definitely not a plane. It seems to be tethered to something. Is that a banner, Joe? Caribou Con. Does anyone know what Caribou Con is?
Caribou Con.
one of the BC Caribou region's best-kept secrets. Until now. Join our panel of renowned paranormal experts for a weekend of fun and intriguing presentations. Go to cariboucon.com to book or inquire now.
Over here. Look at this.
Discover Spaced Out Radio on all your favorite platforms. We're live every single night with the best in UFOs, cryptids, paranormal, and the unexplained. And you can find us on all your favorite platforms. Head over to Instagram for behind the scenes and daily weirdness, TikTok for quick mind-bending clips, Facebook for community discussions, and X for real-time updates and hot takes. Wherever you scroll, Spaced Out Radio is there. So go search Spaced Out Radio on every platform, hit follow, and turn on notifications so you never miss a single episode. The weird is waiting. See you there.
The McNeil House is one of several buildings at the 108-mile heritage site said to be haunted by spirits of a time long forgotten. But would you stay the night? Along with guided ghost tours and paranormal investigations, Haunted 108 is offering a chance to spend the entire night inside the historic McNeil House by booking one of our B&B style sleepovers, where you can experience the hauntings firsthand, meet the resident ghost cat, and witness unusual activity. If you dare to turn history into a night you'll never forget, book your spot now at haunted108.com. Spots are limited. Will you be brave enough?
All right, let's bring in little Granty Baker. Here he is. Look at that.
Lip blade and all, man. Lip blade and all.
Look at that lip blade. Looking strong. That's some strong blade game right there.
Oh, man. I had to grow everything out and then shave it all just so I could surprise everybody with the blade.
Kira Jade, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for coming on in. Don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell. We're here every night. Tommy Guitar Gibson. He's a Les Paul guy. Welcome. SOR Chat. Here we go. This is the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We have Swamp Dweller, and we have our good friend Grant Baker coming up with the UFO report. But first, we want to say hello to all of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ragmatical. Ragmatical is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp.
My father, mother, and I make frequent trips to the Smoky Mountains and stay in the cabins they have near Pigeon Forge. However, this particular trip still haunts me to this day. About 8 years ago, we stayed in a cabin that had an alarm system. It was already dark outside when we reached the cabin and got settled in. We set the alarm and thought we should watch a movie together. While we were watching the movie, the security alarm system went off. The alarm was only supposed to go off if the door was open. We checked the cabin top and bottom, but we could find nothing out of the ordinary. The next morning, we called the company that rented the cabin to us to have them check out the alarm system. Someone came and checked out the system, and they said it's been called out to our cabin multiple times within the past month with the same problem. Since it's only the first day at the cabin, I am already feeling a little creeped out. I noticed that there's a book on the table that guests can sign and talk about how much they love the cabin. As I was reading more and more stories, I noticed that many of them mentioned feeling unsafe, and some even mentioned that they found wet footprints on the deck where the hot tub is. I told my family about these stories, and they told me they are just trying to tell scary stories and get our other guests spooked. I agree with her and go about our day. The same night, we go to bed like normal. My father slept in the basement of the cabin. I slept on the main floor beside the kitchen, and my mother slept on the top floor. My dad snores so loud that we all sleep far away from each other, including my mom. It was about 2 a.m. in the morning when I am woken up by the fridge door closing. I looked at the bright light from the fridge that was pouring into my room from the crack underneath my closed bedroom door. I noticed that light would come and go as the fridge door seemed to continue to open and close. I assumed it was one of my parents leaning on the fridge trying to decide what they wanted to eat for a late night snack. However, I felt weird and didn't even consider to get out of bed to join them on the snack. The fridge light disappeared slowly, and I heard footsteps walk away from out of my room and to the direction of my mom's room. The footsteps seemed to stop for a second, then start the trip up the stairs. All of a sudden they stopped. I assumed that it was my mother and she made it to her room, so I fell back asleep. The next morning, I wake up and go directly to my mom and ask if she decided to eat a late night snack. She looked at me and asked, "What?" I told her that I thought she was at the fridge last night opening and closing the fridge because I heard her go back upstairs after a while, maybe around 2 a.m. She looked at me and said, "I thought that was you." At this time in my life, I was known to sleepwalk every now and then. "I saw you standing at the top of the stairs last night around that time. I assumed you were sleepwalking because you looked at me and went back downstairs." So at this point, I started to freak out because I wasn't up at the top of the stairs. The rest of the trip, I slept with my mother on the very top floor. I didn't experience anything else the rest of the trip and never saw anything else, but I never went anywhere alone. A couple of months go by after our trip when my dad tells me he was looking to rent another cabin for a trip. We went to go look at the cabin that we rented the last time and found that cabin has been closed and is no longer available to rent. Out of curiosity, he did some research to find out that many guests experienced something in that cabin. The complaints range from feeling unsafe to people thinking someone was in the cabin that shouldn't have been, to people leaving before their vacation was over. I'm not sure what my mother and I had experienced that night at the cabin, but I now know that we aren't the only ones that went through something similar.
Thank you, Swampy, for another great story. If you want more just like that, head on over to Swamp Dweller's YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. Thousands of stories for you to listen to each and every day and night, except when you're listening to this show, because you get Swampy in the third hour. And we want you to enjoy our guests. So check it on out on Swamp Dweller. From the swamp to the stars, it's that time of the night. Grant Baker's here for the UFO Report.
Sky. Grant's got the stories breaking through. What hidden now comes into view. From distant lights to secret files, history tracks back for miles and miles. Latest news, truth revealed. Every signal slowly peeled. Go shoot it close, don't miss the path. UFO, we've got your back. We've got radio. Becomes a song.
You know, Grant, before we get started, I got to tell you,
Yeah.
I was out at my Flight 21 investigative site this past weekend, and one of my trail cameras was moved. So I call up Robin Haynes, our resident cryptid psychic, communicates with Bigfoot all the time. And she goes in and she says, one of your cameras is moved. I believe it was a Sasquatch. I'm not sure. But one of your cameras has moved. Okay. I said, which one? She goes, the one by the gifting site. Okay, not a problem. So we go over to the gifting site after we get off the phone. We get it out there. Brian, my investigative buddy, and I, we go in there and we check it on out. Go into the gifting site, and my camera is not there.
Mm-hmm.
My camera is about 5 feet away on the ground, staring up at the sky. So thank goodness we have the second camera in the tree to record the culprit. And the day after we planted it, here comes this massive black bear on the other camera, kind of waddling up, waddling up towards the camera. Sees it, decides that he's going to play with it a little bit, takes a bite out of it.
Oh.
Even though like it's metal, he didn't like that. The camera's got a nice scar though. It still works, but it's still got a nice scar. And literally, dude, you see him all of a sudden grabbing it and he's juggling it around in his paws before he puts it down and then walks away. So that's kind of cool. We go check the other trail camera, Brian's trail camera, where we have it on a plastic jar of peanut butter.
Oh gosh.
Okay. Plastic jar of peanut butter. We get there. Oh, there's the camera. Turn up towards the peanut butter. And the peanut butter jar is still up in the tree, hasn't moved. There's a chunk of about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, missing from the bottom. And the peanut butter, because it got warm, the peanut butter melted all the way down like a waterfall down this 7-foot tree stump where we have it in. Okay, well, we got to catch something on the camera doing this. At one point, there's a little baby cub that's running around. But here's the thing. I went back on that trail cam, man. I see rabbits. I see the bear. And then goes to August 19th, 9 in the morning. First video taken. There is no peanut butter running down the tree. By 3:30 that afternoon, the peanut butter jar has been broken and all the peanut butter has leaked on out. Here's the problem. That trail camera did not fire with whatever broke the peanut butter camera.
Really?
I've been looking. I've been analyzing. I've gone backwards. I've gone forwards. Nothing triggered the camera to set it off. And that peanut butter jar is broken.
Wow.
And the plastic piece, we couldn't find it.
Oh, it took it with it.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, it had 1 inch of peanut butter in the bottom of it, like a plate. Let's go.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Well, the bears out there are going to have a good little tasting area for the peanut butter right now.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what it was, but it was there. It was there.
The interesting thing is those cameras, they're pretty sensitive. I mean, if you walk within 30 feet of one, they turn on. They have a motion sensor and pretty good range. The fact that you didn't catch anything, and it had to have been moving around quite a bit to be able to open up the bottom of that jar, and
You would think.
So
you would think.
That's odd. That's a good catch.
Yeah. So we're taking a week off because this weekend I'm heading to Vancouver.
That's correct.
Got to see Guns N' Roses, favorite band ever. Right? Me and my boy. We're going to go rock out to Paradise City.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty pumped about that. But I will say this. We have 2 cameras out there right now. I'm very curious to see what those cameras will catch in the next couple of weeks. We're trying different positions on the cameras, and we'll see what comes up. It's going to be interesting. Anyways, last week, go ahead.
I was going to say, you need 3 cameras that are all looking at each other. So no matter what, they're all going to fire off at least one. So,
well, you know what? We have a couple more cameras that need to go out.
Okay.
We do have a couple more cameras that need to go out. I just need to get SD cards for them.
No.
I got the batteries, just need the SD cards. And then we'll be good to go. All right. Last week was pretty much a dud in the UFO world, but this week seems to be starting off with a little bit of inquisitive thought. What do you got for us?
We got a few things, and it's not going to surprise anybody, but they're fun to listen to and read and catch up on the current bleeding edge of news when it comes to UFOs and aliens and spaceships, bodies, in this case, the ocean. So this is on Daily Star, if anybody actually wants to go read it. Donald Trump says aliens are living in our oceans, according to his inner circle. This one is actually hard for me to read, just because when they quoted Jack Osbourne, yes, everybody, the son of rock icon Ozzy Osbourne, the late, God bless his soul, Godspeed, my friend, Ozzy Osbourne. Jack had a little bit of a issue when he's talking to these people with saying and like all the time. But let's get this out there. And this outlined how one of Trump's inner circle is also close to him and confided the U.S. leader's revelation that aliens are thriving under the sea. That is the headline. And when you read this, it's very interesting. There's a lot of quotes here, and I'll go through those real quick. U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed that aliens are living on Earth, not out in the open, but in our oceans, which we have been talking about many times before. We've done many shows on that. That is the bombshell claim from Jack Osbourne. So Jack Osbourne is now a paranormal investigator and TV host. Outlined how one of Trump's inner circle is also close to him and confided the White House leader's revelations. Trump opened the UFO files from the Pentagon as part of his promise of his reelection. Jack confessed, and I quote, "Now with all these documents coming out from the government being like there's something going on, I have a friend who is very close with the president." Another quote, "They speak once a week like clockwork. Every Saturday they have a phone call," and he asked him, he's like, "What's the deal with all this UFO stuff?" He goes on to say, and apparently Trump said, "We have no idea what they are, but they're in our oceans," which I think is kind of interesting. He added that Trump's comment makes sense as part of the oceans have never been explored. Jack feels that visitors from our out of space are connected to Earth. Another quote, he says, "I think they're observing us. I think Sentinel Island, that island in the Indian Ocean, which is completely isolated, no one's allowed to set foot on it, or in his case, in it. And there's people that have been living there forever. We just kind of sit back and watch them. I think that's a lot of what goes on, and they will abduct you." Where I sit, like the paranormal stuff, is like I am like a foot in being like a believer. Sorry, I can't read that like he says it. I kind of ride the skeptic line, so I always kind of, whatever anyone tells me a story, I'm kind of like, okay, like interesting. Whew, that hurt to read. So I don't necessarily know. Jack, who is the owner of Spark TV, a channel looking at the paranormal, opened up on the bombshell revelation, discussing his own battle with believing those who have experienced abductions. He says, "I tried to produce a TV show back in the day that was a UFO abduction support group. And it was all these folks sat around, kept sharing their stories. Some were pretty similar, a room filled with light, and they kind of hovered it out of that window. Some would just like, wait, what? Like totally out there." I'm sorry, I have a hard time reading how he speaks. Jack also was on a set for a TV show where a man claimed he had been implanted by an alien. This one's interesting. There was a documentary that came out, a documentary called Patient 17, where they did a surgery and removed an alien implant from a guy. And Jack says, I was there for the surgery. It was in his leg, and it kind of looked like a kidney stone, like a large kidney stone. Jack Osborne feels that there are some hostile and some friendly extraterrestrials who have interacted with Earth. He provided insight into some human ET experiences. This is another quote from him. This one thing with abduction, I think trauma is a huge part of it. I think some people's trauma responses, they will have these, visions, hallucinations, whatever, are people actually remembering when you're born. You're in a very white room with very bright lights, and these big, massive creatures with big heads are looking at you. And I think that could be a possibility with the same. That is exactly the post that was written there. Now, I want to dig into this just a little bit, though.
Okay.
So we've talked about the suboceanic, base theory. A lot of people will say, these are transmedium entities. And for people that don't know what transmedium is, it is a craft that can go not only in outer space, but into our atmosphere as well as our oceans. Our submarines have seen these, and they call them fast movers or fast walkers, so to speak. And according to this report, Jack Osborne has shared this conversation involving a close friend. But for an extraterrestrial research perspective, this aligns with the USO, also known as unidentified submersible objects. And rather than traveling through light years through deep space, every time they visit, non-human intelligence, may maintain an operational base deep within the trenches of our oceans. And yes, they are vast, unexplored regions where human sonar and visual observations rarely reach. But we've been to the deepest part of our oceans, but it's not necessarily the places where they should hide. There have been on Google Earth, and now this is me just talking about past experiences, just off the coast of Southern California, where there was a prominent mass with structure, with beams that were holding this structure up, and now it is blurred off of Google Earth. We've seen these things, whether they're using LiDAR or anything else. The Sentinel Island observational protocol that they have there, in our group of ufology, this kind of closely ties to the zoo hypothesis. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It's a theory that suggests that extraterrestrials are deliberately avoiding contact with humanity on a global scale to allow our civilization to develop naturally. That's kind of based on what he's talking about there. And they're only going to intervene via covert operations or even observations or radar testing, and they're going to have targeted close encounters, which is what I think is happening. Then the physical implant and abduction claims that he made there, me as a believer, in the physical reality of abductions, only because of my past experiences, and I don't know if I was abducted. I just have a moment where I don't know if I had lost time. I don't know what happened, but I was definitely moved from one point to another. But when you have the physical reality of abductions, you view these anomalous objects as metallic or biological tracking devices, implants, designed to monitor human biology or even genetic lines, or even positional data or generational data. In my case, I have a very, very, very rare blood type. And I think when I was 5 and I had seen that alien gray coming through my window, and then I moved from one bed to another after I flinched, that might have been something in my mind. I kind of connect those two together, where because of the rarity of my blood type and that happening to me, there could be something there. And so there is a psychological counter argument though here. And I wrote this down because I wanted to get it out, but
we got about a minute and a half left.
All right, I can do it. So he did say something about his skeptical side. He is kind of reflecting on whether some abduction memories could be like psychological responses or hallucinations rooted in birth trauma. That one kind of gave me like, I don't know if that's possible. I mean, it could be. I'm not a doctor, but where bright lights, large-headed figures, doctors and nurses, and in a white room mirrors classic alien depictions. But me being a believer, however, I often view this as dual perspective, as a way to distinguish genuine physical encounters from misidentified like sociological experiences. Like, I don't remember my birth. I do remember things when I was 2, but it's only things that were big. And about 4 is when I really start taking off with my memories. So I don't know exactly how true that one might be.
Well, on that note, are there aliens going through the ocean? Are they strumming on through, catching a wave, just while listening to the Beach Boys along the California coast? You never know. You never know what's going on. But Grant Baker is going to continue with the UFO report as we go on tonight. Grant comes in twice a week to break down the latest news and reviews of everything to do with unidentified flying objects.
It's Spaced Out Radio. And your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy, we're clear.
All right. God, I will say this behind the scenes. Jack Osborne, doing the thing, reminds me of, he was one of the first ones to jump aboard the Woo Train bandwagon. You know what I mean? Trying to make a little bit of a profit on it. And it kills me because I know his dad's a rock star, but that dude, he's just riding the coattails, man. And and he has the money to do it. I mean, is he a cool dude? Probably. I've never met him, but gosh, dude.
He is apparently a really cool dude. Nate Rudd, a good friend of mine, he hasn't been on the show in a long time. He's a Bigfoot hunter out of Washington State, and he helped. He was a guest on one of Jack's shows where they went searching for Sasquatch. And he said Jack and him literally stayed up all night just sharing Bigfoot stories.
That makes me happy that you said that.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to Jack Osborne, I have like I don't know what it is. When I see the kids of these epic, godlike figures that have made it in life, like Ozzy Osbourne, it's just, and you see, I don't know, man, all those MTV shows when you had Paris Hilton and Lionel Richie's daughter, and they're just making fools of themselves. And that's the way I've always thought of them. Like, all these kids are just, so if he's actually doing it and out there, then Godspeed, man. And I will change my misdirected thoughts on the guy, because to me, but he's been doing it longer than Dr. Phil. So, I mean, there's something in that.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
I mean, he's probably a good dude. I can't talk too much crap about him. But when you're giving an interview, quit doing the like totally, dude.
And that's podcasting today. Because the beautiful part about podcasting, and also the biggest nemesis of it all, is it gives everybody a voice.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people are going to follow somebody like Jack Osborne not because of his knowledge of Bigfoot or ghosts or anything like that. But they're going to follow it because they loved Ozzy, right? Yeah. And hey, that's okay. That's okay. I mean,
maybe I'll go talk to see if I can get a hold of him, talk to him myself.
But you know what? I've heard a lot of podcasts over the years, dude. I've heard, and I don't want to be critical.
I do. I'm always critical.
But you know what? I just wish that people who get into podcasting, because anybody can do it, go for it. If it's what you want to do, don't do it for money. Just go do it because you enjoy talking about the subjects, number one. But number
100%.
two, learn how to talk.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
still learning, man.
No, no, but what I'm saying, bro, is this like, don't give me a play by play. I don't need you to tell me about every sip of coffee you take.
Yeah.
Okay. And break it down for me. Or, hello, is this on? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Right? Like, run with it. Your audience is going to tell you. I know when I forget to put my mute button on, our audience goes crazy in the chat room where I'm like, they're like, turn your fucking microphone on, you asshole. Right?
Stop chat.
I mean, literally. Right? But that's my only beef. Learn how to talk.
Yeah. So when I was going through drama, and I did, I majored in, I hate to say this, and I better not. I had two majors. I had drama and photography. And anyways, so in drama, the one thing that they teach you right in the beginning, and I mean, this is like 101, basic high school drama, is never say or and or don't do those, or like, those filler words. You never add fillers. So even to this day, when I'm going through these, and I got the topics written down, and then I have the breakdown that I've added to it. And in fact, most times I don't even read it all the way. I kind of look at it and say, okay, this is what I need to say. Then in doing that, the whole time I'm thinking, don't say or and or
I try hard not to.
Oh, dude,
I try hard, really, really hard not to.
It's so hard.
All right, we're coming back in 10 seconds. Thank you to our super chatters, T-Bone and Kitty. T-Bone's also gifted 3 memberships tonight. T-Bone, you're the man. You're the man. Thank you to all of our mods, too. Here we go. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. This is a show that's flown on by tonight. I feel like I barely said like 20 words. My name is Dave Scott. I'm hosting this thing. Let's go right to Grant Baker and the UFO report. Right before the break, Grant, we had President Trump talking about UFOs flying in the water, known as USOs. Said, check the oceans, man. Check the oceans. What else you got for us here?
We got a couple things. We're going to start with the most negative one and work our way up. And this is something that I broke down for everybody as well. But it goes, people are now bored and fed up with UFO disclosure. So please, please, please stop serving us blurry foreplay footage and just show us the recovered bodies. Friends, the Pentagon recently released its 5th batch of UFO and UAP files, showing yet more blurry black and white videos of mysterious orbs and unidentified craft. But unfortunately, no one seems to care anymore. Outside of the UFO community, the average Joe or Jane on the streets is no longer interested, and the mainstream media are barely bothering to cover it as well. Why? Because we seem to have reached UFO fatigue, something, Dave, you've talked about many times. Each new UAP UFO file release just seems like more of the same, and yes, it is. Yet another fuzzy orb flying across military screens is now not enough to move the dial of disclosure in any meaningful way. People now see the videos and they say, so what, and scroll right past them. So do I. Because we keep being given variations of essentially the same evidence. So where's the evidence that actually makes people put down their coffees and say, my God, we are not alone? I know such proof exists, but I have seen it. I've told you for years that I was shown refrigerated non-human bodies at NASA facility in the 1970s. I know the U.S. government, and most probably other governments across the world too, have recovered UFO material craft and bodies as well. So stop messing around and wasting our time with all these deja vu videos of blurry UAPs, UFOs. Just show everyone close-up, colored photos and videos of the bodies. Not another DOT, not another orb, not another infrared blob. Just organize a live international broadcast and invite a panel of independent scientists and respected journalists. Broadcast it live across the world, easy to do, because in this age of AI and disinformation, that is the only way you will be able to finally convince the average Joe sitting at home that this is all absolutely real. That would be a capital real disclosure. Everything else is foreplay, just shows the bodies, no more crumbs, no more teasing, no more endless starters. Just put the irrefutable evidence on the table, because after 5 batches of files, I believe the public is more ready than the main course. Like, we can get it, and it's so frustrating. I mean, when they're updating these files, it feels like we're treading water, period. And we're not even in the pond. We're like in a kiddie pool treading water.
Well, I want to correct something there
Yeah.
for our audience that you read. And I know it wasn't you as the person who wrote it.
Right.
Okay. We are not under UFO fatigue. We are under UAP fatigue.
Correct.
Okay. We want UFOs. They're not going to give us UFOs. We're tired of the dots. We're tired of everything. And Nicole calls it perfect. It's disclosure disillusion.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Okay. We're tired of the fatigue of it all. Hearing the politicians, hearing everybody tell us about these great videos that they have, about the aliens that they have, about the crash retrievals that they have. And what do we get? Missiles, drones, little drone orbs, all of them just coincidentally happen to be taken in war zones where, guess what? That's where they test the latest and greatest radars and weaponry.
Yep.
Right? It's getting ridiculous. I mean, how many times do we have to hear Tim Burchett scream the sky is falling on this subject, and yet the sky doesn't fall?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's getting ridiculous. People are tired of it. And you know what, Grant? I'm going to tell you right now, I called it. I called it months ago.
Yep.
That what was going to happen is, after the first tranche came out, I said, if these start to get worse and worse, and remember, this is just a couple months ago, what's going to happen is people are going to start tuning out. And that's exactly what the big boys and girls in Washington, D.C. want. They want this subject swept back under the rug. That is why in the last tranche, we had basically 2 UFO videos that were cut into 5 separate videos of the same craft. You're telling me Tim Burchett or Lou Elizondo or David Grush, out of these thousands of videos that are purportedly supposed to be there, that we get 2 videos that are cut into 5 different segments to make it look like there's 10 videos of the same dot? Okay. If the public in the UFO world, not the UAP world, if the public in the UFO world would wake up and realize that they are being hoodwinked, okay, then we'll start getting back to the answers. If the UAP world would ever wake up, by God, you know, the world, then literally the sky may fall.
Yep.
Okay. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I agree 100% with the article.
I do too. And I'm getting to the point where I don't even want to click on the tranches when they do come out, which is usually a Friday. And it's funny because I've actually sat there and said, oh, I don't know if it's coming out this week on a Thursday when we're on the show here. And then the next day it pops up. It's like, they got me. That's about the only thing I look forward to, though. I do agree wholeheartedly, though.
It's sad. It's sad. Look, we know there's something out there for the people who have seen or experienced, whether they've seen lights in the sky or they've had a close encounter to the third kind, fourth kind, or fifth kind. Okay. Literally, we already know. We already know. And this is where we have to call out this UAP BS as if it means something, because it doesn't mean a thing, Grant.
Nope.
This is why, and you've read in our chat rooms, people for years going absolutely haywire on me. UAP and UFO are the same thing. No, they're not. No, they're not. Even after we've proven it. No, they're not. The UAP are man-made objects.
Yep.
That's what they want you to believe are UFOs.
Yeah, so they can hide the technology.
Bingo. It makes sense. Right? So it is what it is. We'll just keep saying, I told you so on Spaced Out Radio, man. That's what we'll do. We're going to become the I Told You So network.
Oh, goodness. All right, let's move on to the next. You ready for this one?
Well, I want to get to this question first from First Contact. We don't normally take questions in this signal. Why do you think Skywatcher wouldn't do a UAP luring operation outside the White House? Let me ask you this with another question. Why did they choose, when they did their public spectacle of UAP psionics, in other words, UFO summoning, why did they choose one of the most secretive airspaces in the United States at 29 Palms in California, where Lockheed Skunk Works is, where they do test flights of secret craft? Why do you think they would choose there? Why wouldn't they go into the mountains of Arizona or the mountains of Washington or the flatlands of Idaho and Montana or Wyoming, where you could see for miles? The reason why? Because they weren't going for UFOs. They needed to prove something. What better way to prove it than when you're on an aerial testing observation area?
And not only that, I don't know if you've been to 29 Palms. There is nothing out there. I have driven through it a few times. There is nothing out there. It is desolate.
But that's what I'm saying, is that's because it's a secret area.
Yeah.
Like when I say secret area, the area is not secret, but what they build there, what they're creating there technologically, that's all secret stuff. That's all secret programs. It's black ops. Okay. So when you got psionics there and they're bragging about how they found some lights after using the dog whistle, wow. Wouldn't that be more impressive if, say, they were in Nome, Alaska, where there is no military base? Or how about, if you're that serious about it, why don't you come up to the Canadian wilderness, where there's literally barely any people up here? No light pollution, no nothing. There's no military bases. Do your little psionic crap, otherwise known as summoning, and do it there, not in some 29 Palms area. Give me a break. You know what bugs me about that? Now you got me on a roll here. You know what bugged me about that, Grant?
Yeah.
Is the fact that nobody in the UFO community, or very few in the UFO community outside of us, called them out on it.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, when they brought in those orbs of light, everybody was like, ooh, look at the video on X. Ooh, Skywatcher. Ooh, technology. Ooh, dog whistle. At 29 Palms.
Yeah. Complete
Home
farce.
Yeah. Home of the secret technology of Lockheed Skunk Works. Go figure. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Anyways, I'm done.
You're good, man. Just make sure you keep that blood pressure low. I agree with you. Trust me, I'm right there. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So real quick, we're going to switch gears just a little bit, and we're going to go with one of the most famous journalists that we know of around these parts, Justin Ross Colehart, is quoted saying, "Time is running out for UFO disclosure. There needs to be an urgency from President Trump before the midterm elections." The investigative journalist told Katie Pavlik, I want to say that's how you say that, Trump has already taken bigger steps on UAP disclosure than any previous president, ordering waivers of non-disclosure agreements so insiders can speak, but those waivers currently only let whistleblowers talk to the president or his authorized offices, not the public. Figures. Colehart points to the timing. There's an awareness that the president doesn't have much time. Politically, the president is going to be at his strongest up to the midterm elections. He noted credible figures like David Grush and Dr. Eric Davis have described hard evidence of retrieved craft and non-human beings. Colehart says sources inside the Legacy program privately confirmed awareness of 4 types, and we've heard this before. Greys being one, mantids, reptilians, and the Nordics. I've already met the Greys, haven't met the mantids or the reptilians, but the Nordics, I think people can swallow a little easier. He quoted, "If that's true, why is the government concealing it? What possible, plausible, reasonable reason could there be for the president not signing a form saying the public can be told the truth?" Corral calls this a rare opening, and he's quoted saying, "This could be the legacy for the president. This is an opportunity for the leader of the free world." Now, he's not the only one that has already said some stuff, and this is going off of what the article was about. President Obama down here in the United States a few months back let slip that aliens are real. He's never seen one. And then he kind of backtracked a little bit, and that's when all this started. But, I mean, if you read between the lines here, it really isn't just news anymore. Like, this is like kind of a historical nexus. It's the clock isn't just ticking here for political reasons. It's ticking because the military-industrial complex and the legacy reverse engineering programs know the door is cracking open, and they are absolutely terrified. That is my belief system on it. I believe that we have things that we figured out, whether it be reverse engineering or even being told by the pilots of these craft, or whether we're in contact with all 4 of these races at a much higher level than the public knows about. But, there's an executive order loophole here. If Trump is taking the step to waive NDAs for internal intelligence channels, that's a massive crack in the wall of secrecy. Keeping those disclosures behind locked doors, like in offices and stuff, isn't enough. The whistleblowers like David Grush and Dr. Eric Davis, they've laid out the paper trail, the hardware locations, and they've done that under oath. The deep state legacy programs, they're relying on bureaucratic red tape to keep those waivers private. That's you can go on to the midterm deadline and the rush. I mean, we do have here in the United States a president that has been sensationalized on TV. You're fired. He's got a presence about him, but if he really wants to end his last term with a bang, why not capital D disclosure? It's just right now, there is a maximum political capital to force a president to pen stroke on this. We'll just leave it at that. He gets to the 4 species, and he isn't guessing that the names of the Greys, mantids, reptilians, Nordics, these match absolute decades of not only whistleblowing but trace evidence. There's compartmentalized briefing leaks that we've had. The international architecture of the program literally categorizes these non-human intelligence, or also known as NHIs. This has been generations, and they're feeding the public cover stories. The weather balloons, the swamp gas, whatever you want to talk about. Like, we're used to this. And then they have, why conceal it? That's there is maybe a reason, and this is my reason, is because the absolute secrecy probably protects, and I've talked about this before, 0-point energy technologies, reverse engineering propulsion systems that would literally overnight dismantle the global energy monopoly that they have on us and the world itself. That is the biggest power. And if the president literally signs a public waiver, he doesn't just trigger disclosure. He literally breaks an illegal 80-year corporate governmental embargo on human progress. Huge. Absolutely huge. And I think that's exactly why they're doing this. That's the reason why we're getting the tranches as little blips and blurbs and dots and junk. And I think that's exactly what it is.
I think you're right. I really do think you're right on that. And that really, pushes the table on what we're actually seeing right now, Grant.
Correct.
The malaise that we're having for this topic. I've never used malaise on this show before. Glad it popped into my head. The malaise we're seeing on this topic, the idea that we're looking to try and move the subject forward, the idea that we're trying to create passion for a topic that most people, and if we focus on the US, most Americans couldn't give two flips about.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, we're getting played.
Exactly. We have one last one if you're ready for it, and it's a quick one. I think
we got 90 seconds.
Oh, I don't think we're going to have it. James Lukatsky, UFOs are part of the paranormal. The government already knows this. That's as fast as I can say it.
No kidding, James. No kidding. If anybody has listened to I think there's around 100,000 YouTube and podcasts regarding the UFOs and aliens and paranormal. I may know one. I may know a show that talks about the connection that UFOs are paranormal. It's the name's just off the top of my head. It's on the tip of my tongue here. They talk about it like Monday through Friday on a bunch of different radio stations. They talk about it on a bunch of different podcast networks. They talk about it all over the world. Listeners from Australia to Canada, the United States, the UK, all over the world. Only if there was a show like that, James Lukatsky, that would tell the people that everything is connected under one phenomena. My God, what a concept. What a concept. Grant, do you know of any?
No.
My goodness. This is where we are, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, gosh.
This is where we are. Thank you, James Lukatsky, your very well six-figured salary for allowing everything that 100,000 podcasts and YouTube channels have been saying for years. We appreciate you. Thank you for everything that you do.
So really quick, anybody goes to a Blink-182 concert, Tom DeLonge comes out, and the first thing he says before he starts playing is, UFOs are real.
Isn't that way to go, Tom? Way to go, because the government is having you advise them on UFOs. You can't make this stuff up, people. You just can't make this stuff up. Thank you, Advisor Tom and Grant Baker, for the UFO report, as we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in, at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friend,
We're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Even you, sweet Tommy D. Good night. You know, I will say this, Grant.
Don't hit the wrong button.
No, I did not hit the wrong button. I am a big fan of Blink 182. I really like DeLong's music.
Yeah,
I really do.
I just went to see him last fall in Portland, and that's exactly what he did. As soon as he came on stage, he got on the mic. I mean, they had, I think, 2 cover bands. One of them was the drummer's son, and the other one was Pierce the Veil. And then he came on stage, and the first damn thing he said was aliens are real, or UFOs are real. He said UFOs are real on the one I saw. But I was there. I was even on the Jumbotron. It was cool.
Right?
He believes.
I would pay to see DeLong. I would pay to see Blink 182.
It's a good show. It really is. And you know, coming back and is the amount of time between, you know, when they started and then today, they still got it. They still got it. It's a good show. I was actually surprised how good it was. And they were free tickets to me. So I was like, I'll go, dude. All I got to do is drive a couple hours. Let's go. I ended up staying the night, drinking way too much, and which happens often. And it was great. Had a blast.
I knew you would.
St. Francis, baby. Yeah.
Right.
You going on your show tonight?
Bella B, what is this live all about? What is this? Like Zoolander. What is this?
What is this?
We're just wrapping up our conversation tonight, Bella. Thank you so much for checking us out. Appreciate you. Dry Toast, best name on YouTube. How you doing, buddy?
For years.
Bella, you are welcome here anytime you want, because we love it when new people like yourself come on in. Oil Cam, how you doing? Shogun, how you doing? New York is going to be calling me here any second. Tomorrow night on the show, Lynn Monet will be omnipresent with the paranormal tomorrow. Lynn Monet. She doesn't go by the American version, Monette.
What?
I knew that. She wants a more French linguistic. Monet.
It's dirt, son. Don't try to church it up. It's Monet. Even Americans say Monet.
No, you don't.
I do not say Monette. If someone says Monette, they're
have no French in you whatsoever.
No, I mean, I hope I don't.
Oh, there's New York.
There he is.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? I'm just wrapping up my show here. Do you want to say hi to my audience?
Hello, audience. How's it going?
There you go. You're famous now. You're famous. All right,
Yep.
I'm gonna wrap up my stuff here. Just put me on hold. I'll be ready.
77 WABC. Go check out Dave.
Yeah. All right, guys, we got to wrap it up. Thank you to T-Bone for the membership gifts in the super chat. Kitty, thank you for the super chat. Tomorrow night, Lynn Monette in Grant's World. See you tomorrow, everyone.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.